Hello, everyone. Glad you're here. It is Mother's Day. So why are you here? I was going to cancel today because I thought, my kids would like to spend some time with me, but everybody had to work. So that didn't work out. So we're going to do it tomorrow. So I said, yes, I'll go ahead and do this. And then my granddaughter wanted to have a picnic. So we had a picnic right up until now. And so now I'm totally discombobulated. Couldn't get things done. So I'm hopefully at least dressed. And I'm here and you're here. And I'm going to do my normal mic check. So people who know me just say, I can hear you clearly. And then I'll tell you when to stop saying that. Just because I don't want to do again a show with people not being able to hear me. Can you hear me? Claire, can you hear me? Roberta, can you hear me? Leonora, can you hear me? Annie, can you hear me? Okay. Are we hearing me? Because I'm not going to go on until I know everybody can hear me. So somebody tell me if you can hear me or not. Oh, okay. Y'all take so long to get to tell me these things. And I'm like, maybe they're not hearing me at all. Okay, thank you. Don't have, and everybody else, you can stop now. I just want to make sure because I say I don't like to do shows with. No, that's mean. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, let's go ahead. So you are here. I hope you all do have a happy Mother's Day. If you're moms or if you have moms, everybody's got moms somewhere. So, and even if they're not on earth with us anymore, they're still in our hearts. So say happy Mother's Day to my mom, and happy Mother's Day to my mother-in-law, who is also not on earth anymore. But here I am, and I have a daughter and two sons and a granddaughter. So I'm very blessed to be here on earth on Mother's Day. But Son of Sam, which we're going to do today, unfortunately he took a number of girls off the earth. And a really sad thing because, these families lost their daughters. They were young women, and they had their whole lives ahead of them. And then the one here, wait a minute, point the right direction here. This guy, David Berkowitz, who called himself the Son of Sam, he started in New York City in 1976. Now, I don't know how old you guys were in 1976, but I was 21, and I do. I was in the perfect age range. Luckily, I lived in Virginia and Washington, D.C., and I did go to New York a number of times. It's funny, I don't really have a strong memory of being there during that time, so I guess I wasn't like there when I was really worried about it. So maybe my trips to New York were not in that time range when he was busy. Perhaps I didn't go to New York for that reason. But it must have been very, very scary for people because we had in DC, we had the DC snipers, which does remind me a bit of the Son of Sam kind of killings, because most serial killers, they don't go after people with guns, shooting them, sort of willy-nilly here and there all over town. That is not the way serial killers usually work. And so it's kind of like, it's so different for people because, if you hear about a girl who's, her body's been found in the bushes, of course you're concerned. You don't know where that serial killer could be, but generally speaking, you don't think he's coming after you necessarily. But if you have somebody just driving around town shooting people, it's very frightening. And I was here during the DC sniper time, and you just kind of didn't know. That's funny. I just want to point this out. It's not Mother's Day here in the UK. Emily says ours is in March. Well, then that's why you're here. So, I'm not messing up your day. But I was here for the snipers. And what would happen is you were afraid to drive out of your house. And I don't know how familiar some of you are, if you are from the UK, to understand our DC sniper situation. But we had, all we knew was somebody was driving around in a vehicle and shooting people. They were shooting people in gas stations. They were shooting people in shopping centers, shooting people coming out of schools. It was just, he, and we thought he at the time because we didn't know if it was he or they, and it turned out to be they. There were two men involved. And you just never knew where they were. And they went around the whole DC area, the Washington, DC area. So it wasn't like you felt safe any place. And people were, it was really, there were some kind of sadly amusing things at the time, because people would like pull into a gas station and then they would hide behind their car and try to, duck behind their car while they were putting gas in there, because they were so afraid the guys would just show up and shoot you. So it was a very frightening time. And, so David Berkowitz, in his thing in New York City during 1976 and 77, the same kind of thing. It's like, well, if you're out in a car, are you in danger? And some people just wouldn't go out in vehicles, especially at night, because this guy was running around in the night. And he was focusing on couples and women, especially women. And before we get into, I'm going to get into the Netflix thing in a minute. Let me tell you what I'm going to do before I start all of this. First part, I'm going to just talk about the basic Son of Sam crimes. I'm not going to get into a lot of evidence. I'm just going to say what basically occurred, what people think basically occurred, what the general story is that basically occurred. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this guy. His name is Maury Terry. And he was a journalist. And when David Berkowitz went to prison, he began to believe that David Berkowitz did not work alone. And he started exploring and investigating, were there more people working with David Berkowitz? And it wasn't just a son of Sam. There were sons of Sam. And so he wrote this book called Ultimate Evil. And the whole Netflix series, which just came out, and if you haven't seen it, it's called... Let me move over here. It's called The Sons of Sam, meaning that Maury Terry, this journalist, thought that there might not have been just a son of Sam, but there was a group working, a satanic cult that was working together. And so David Berkowitz did not commit these crimes alone. And Maury Terry spent his life researching this, his entire life, like every moment of his life. Like they say in the show here that he went down a rabbit hole, in the sense that that's all he did. He just went 100% in on this investigation of his, because he wanted people to know what he called the truth. And he thought he just kept working on finding evidence and presenting it. And he wrote the book, and he died before this show came out. But the producer of the show, did get together with Maury Terry and get a hold of all his, boxes of all his information. And he, of course, read his book. And he decided to put together this show for Netflix called The Sons of Sam, A Descent into Darkness. And the Descent into Darkness was one about the crimes and David Berkowitz, but it was also about Maury Terry and how he just kind of, shall we say, went into this place where he couldn't get back out of again because he was so obsessed with this particular crime. And it's a 4-part series. And I will say this, I rather did like the way it was put together. I thought it was very interesting. Historically, it's fascinating, very good videography, and I like the editing and the way it was put together. So I highly recommend it, because I don't often recommend anything from Netflix, because they usually piss me off, because I find that they're out there to make money, like with Making a Murderer, which I think is egregious and should never have been put out. But some of the Netflix stuff is good. So, they're a company. So in this particular case, I like this. Now, a lot of people haven't been overly thrilled about this particular show. They find it a little boring. Some people just don't like where it went. And I will tell you, the one problem I have is I thought they needed one more show, and that show should have been called Evidence. And we would compare the evidence that the police had on this case with the, quote, evidence that Maury Terry thought he had unearthed, so that we could see how valid was it. Well, they didn't do that, which I think was kind of unfortunate. They sort of left it just going, was Maury Terry right? This information that's out there. And at the end, they point out a bunch of people who say, even victims who say, I think there's more than just David Berkowitz. And they left it hanging there. So people would think, hey, maybe Maury Terry's right. But Maury Terry's information wasn't analyzed at all. Really analyzed. And that's a problem that I think this is one of the problems we have sometimes with shows that are put out, because we don't actually get into the information that will tell us how valid things are and how if they're not valid at all. So anyway, this is Sons of Sam that came out in the show. So what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to do a real quick, who was David Berkowitz, son of Sam, as is seen from the police point of view and what general public knew. And then I will go into what Maury Terry believed occurred. And then I will talk about evidence and comparing the evidence from these 2 points of view. He did son of Sam, David Berkowitz, worked alone, and sons of Sam worked together as a satanic cult. David Berkowitz did not commit all these crimes alone. So let's get into who we're dealing with here. So first of all, I just want to talk about just generally speaking, the crimes themselves. Hold on one second. I need something to drink. So, Diet Pepsi. So anyway, let me talk about just the victims in general and how the crimes went down. Okay, so all right now. Oh, Annie said I've seen all the shows except the final one. Well, get to that one and you'll see you'll compare it to what I'm going to be talking about here. So, but they say I don't like a lot of crime shows, which is funny because I'm a profiler, but a lot of them just make me go, roll my eyes. But I thought this was much more interesting and pointed out some real problems we have with how when people decide to investigate something, many times, I wouldn't say many times, sometimes there has been something that's not quite right and it should be investigated and brought to light. But we also have people who investigate for other reasons, which is, emotional reasons, or they believe something is true, which doesn't have any particular validity. And then they go forth with it and it becomes a huge thing, which may not even be true. So that's why it's important to really look at evidence and understand how people operate. And one of the problems I do find with people who are not criminal profilers, have not worked, with crimes and psychopathy a lot, is they don't understand what they're dealing with. They just don't. They don't understand how people operate. So anyway, let's go to David Berkowitz. So I've got some notes here because I always need notes. So David Berkowitz, it began in 1976, the summer, and continued it in 1977. And this, I'm going to say everything from the police point of view right now, so that I don't have to say, and this is true or not true. Just this is what the police did, and this is what that generally speaking, before Maury Terry rolled around, people believed. Berkowitz killed 6 people and wounded 7, shooting them with a .44 caliber revolver. It was called a bulldog revolver. Then he was caught. And first I want to point about, if you remember the picture I put on the show before, when you come on, I have the long brown hair, which was fun to put on. It wasn't a wig, it's face app, you press the button and you say, I had my hair down when I took the picture, but then I said, I want dark hair. So it just changed it to dark hair. Because the women were frightened because they believed that what they thought was a serial killer, was running around shooting women with long dark hair, kind of the same thing we think about Ted Bundy. And this is one of these myths that has continued forever, that serial killers particularly have this type, and like maybe the person reminds them of their sister or their mother, so they have to kill like a woman of a certain race or a woman that looks a certain way. And so Ted Bundy killed, white women with long brown hair, and same thing with Berkowitz. Well, Ted Bundy killed college-age women, and again, it was the 1970s. And if I showed you a picture of myself in the 1970s, what did I have? Straight long hair. You put the part down the middle and then your hair just came straight down. Yeah, that was it. That's what we wore then. So your chances of getting a girl with long straight hair on a college campus were like pretty much like shooting goldfish in a pond. And here we have David Berkowitz. Where did he live? He lived in New York, in a probably fairly heavy Jewish area. Well, guess what? They're dark-haired people in general. So you take young women, and a lot of them in 1970s, again, are going to have long hair. Now, there's another point to this, though, which is really kind of fascinating. Think about how he's operating. He's got to shoot. He's shooting people in a vehicle, and he wanted to get women. He really did want to shoot women. He'd shot men too, but mostly they're just witnesses and they were in the car. So he wanted to shoot women. And the problem was the women with the short hair, he couldn't tell if they were two men sitting together or it was a male and a female. So you might as well go for the long hair because, well, it's true there are some guys with longer hair, but let's face it, more women with long hair. So you shoot them, the one with long hair. And so if you can't see real clearly, that's what you go for. And he's shooting at night. So he's looking for females in a car. And so long-haired women kind of look that way. So now, I don't think he cared if they had long hair, is my point. It wasn't a particular type. He just wanted available women. Most serial killers want what they can get. And one of the reasons we believed for a long time that white men killed white women and black men killed black women when they were serial killers was because of the neighborhoods were segregated, relatively speaking, for where you lived. And so you just killed whoever was nearby because that's the way serial killers operate. It's like, I'm not going to drive 50 miles away. I'm just going to kill down the block. And all the people in my neighborhood might look like me, But as neighborhoods got more integrated, then you oddly found that white men were killing black women and Hispanic women, and black men were killing white women and Hispanic women. Hispanic men were killing white women and black women. Everybody's killing everybody. They weren't racist. They just were killing who was available. And so this concept that it's something connected to their childhood that they have to get this particular, no. Serial homicide is about power and control. And David Berkowitz wanted power and control, and his life was pretty sucky. I mean, he was an adopted child, and this is, it's interesting because we do see that sometimes we have children in foster care and adopted children who have more issues growing up, and people will say, well, you're trying to like blame adoptive parents. No. I'm an adoptive parent myself, and but what happens a lot of times is unfortunate for these poor children is that I believe strongly in attachment disorder for babies and young children, where you don't get the love that you should get when you're a baby and when you're 6 months and when you're a year and when you're 2 years. We see a lot of problems with psychopathy coming out of some of the children from Russia that were adopted because they were left in cribs and weren't handled very much. And so we have people in the United States sending their kids back to Russia because they're like, the kid's scaring me, and it's really a horrific situation. But for a baby to be, baby's born and the baby's always being held and baby's snuggling with you and the baby's nursed, like that starts a child out well. And then as they grow up, if they've got a stable home and they're not being passed around through foster care systems and stuff, you have a feeling of security and you have a feeling of trust in people. You don't hate people, but sometimes when things don't go so well in the early part of your life, you already distrust people by the time you get to your adoptive parents. So even if they do their best, sometimes what they have is a child with attachment disorder, and they never know what's wrong with their kid. They're like, we keep doing everything for them and the kid just acts weird, So, so there is a higher rate of that, but it's not, there's parents, children who are born biologically to their parents and grow up to be serial killers too. So that does happen. It's not just adopted children. So I'm not saying that, but the more difficulties put into an early child's life, the more problems. But anyway, he grew up and he became, he's very typical for his not doing well in life, essentially failing at this and failing at that. And a lot of people don't know this, but before he was involved in these shootings, he also set over 1,000 fires. He actually had a list that he kept, a diary of all the arsons he committed. So that's another way for a psychopath to get a big cheap thrill out of life. Setting fires is one of those, people talk about the triad, which is setting fires, bedwetting, and killing animals for young children. And well, he hated animals. Well, as a matter of fact, he shot the neighbor's dog. So there you go. He had that one. I don't know about the bedwetting thing, but he definitely, he had issues, and he did some of these traditional things, which is quite interesting. So he did have a history of having a lot of problems. So it is not that he was a successful young man, and then he suddenly started this. He was a psychopathic young man. Now, He sent these letters. This is the next thing he did. He not only did he kill women he sent letters. So let me show you. This is a really interesting thing about the letters he sent. He sent these letters, and I'm not going to go into all of them because it doesn't really matter because it's a bunch of nonsensical stuff he said. But anyway, and here's one of them. You see the way he writes, deeply hurt by women, W-E-M-O-N, and then he says, don't call me a women hater, even though I shoot women. I am a monster, the son of Sam. And so he developed this creepy persona. And this, of course, is why people think he is A, psychotic, and B, that he's involved with a cult, because he also in his pictures he also put in, he made these where's my picture of that? Oh, it's just gone missing. I mean, he did symbolic stuff, and so people thought, oh my God, he's definitely cult. He refers to a lot of cult, like satanic type of stuff. So I'm trying to understand this. By the way, I'm just popping in. That makes sense. Like the statistic, you're more likely to get into a car accident closer to home. It's not that the drivers near your home are reckless. It's because you drive near your home. Absolutely. That is absolutely true, because we spend in reality most of our time near our homes, and we are comfortable near our homes and near our work. So most serial killers, if you're looking for the first victim, always look within a 1 mile radius of where that first victim is, because that's usually where they live. And then they may spread out a little bit, but a lot of times they go from there to work, or sometimes what happens, they lose their job and they go live with their cousin, and then they're in that neighborhood. And that's sometimes why killings stop in a certain place and start someplace else, because they've moved, because they need a place to stay and somebody gave them a room, so now they start killing in that neighborhood, or they move out of state, which makes it really hard on trying to connect the crimes, because suddenly they don't have any money. So they live in Maryland, and then they go to Florida, and now they start killing in Florida. And although everybody thinks that you can put all these, you go to the FBI will put them all into their program, and they're going to then connect all these crimes. No, most of the crimes look so basic, like woman strangled and left in a park, that they match like all 50 states and many, many cities. So it's really hard to match them unless they're really peculiar. So hard to do. But yes, people basically operate where they're comfortable. So we have David Berkowitz now, and the son of Sam writes these creepy letters. Now, it's very interesting to me, because one of the questions is he psychopathic or is he psychotic? Now, it's fascinating that he seems to be only psychotic when he wants to be psychotic. He claimed that the dog next door talked to him and made him do it. And then later he said, yeah, that was bullshit. And oddly enough, he didn't seem to have great interest in the occult when he was in the army or other places. And he didn't seem to necessarily show psychopathic behavior. Absolutely. And he took one of his jobs as security guard, which is one of the number one serial killer jobs out there, because they love the uniform and power and control. So, but they usually, if they're psychotic, usually what happens is they act so weird that they don't function that well. But if they're psychopathic, you know what you're doing. And interesting enough, once he got to prison, he didn't really, a lot of psychotic stuff wasn't really, that wasn't a problem. He may have played it here and there, but he was extremely psychopathic. And when he wrote letters later to Maury Terry, it's fascinating. His letters didn't look like this. His letters looked like normal letters, like Dear Mr. Terry or Dear Maury. And then they just talk just like a normal person, very smart, very intelligent, well-written, grammar is fine. So why this? And then normal letters later. The letters I saw he wrote to the journalist were like letters I get from psychopaths, not letters like a psychotic. As I pointed out in, I think, my last show, psychotics usually write in really weird letters. They write big or too small, and they write around the size of papers. And they write in the back of papers, and they don't shut up, and they go for 8 pages. They write on the envelope. In other words, it just pours out of them. Whereas a psychopath is thinking, I gotta play this person. Let me see what I'm going to write them a nice letter. Mostly they don't go together. I think this was a ploy. I think he had already put up his insanity defense just in case he got caught. And I think that was brilliant. Smart move, and he even supposedly had things written on the wall. Well, doesn't mean that he meant them. He wrote letters to, he did shoot the neighbor's dog. And he wrote creepy letters like this to them as well. Was he really psychotic, or was he just trying to scare the shit out of them? So it's very hard to tell that. And but I think when he was caught and people thought he was crazy and they thought, oh, good, he's a crazy guy. Now he's caught and this all ends. Everybody was relieved. And for some reason, the issue of him being a psychopath hasn't really been explored that well, but I want to introduce you to a book, which is great. This guy wrote a book, Hunting Humans. It's by a guy named Elliot Layton. He writes Inside the Minds of Mass Murderers. I'm not usually fond of these kind of books, but this guy really, really understands things. He's brilliant. Let me see who, I haven't read his books in years, but he is, I'm trying to remember who he was, because this book is from many, many years ago. It doesn't say who he is on this book. Gee, that's weird. But he is one of my favorite authors for actually writing something that makes some damn sense. And one of the things he said here was, which I thought was a great line, he appeared to be, quote, insane, and this gave the public much comfort. And then it says, one of the reasons he launched his career was, he said he could not launch his career as an international celebrity nor construct a tolerable social identity. In other words, he was a big failure, a loser. And then so he became the avenging son of Sam. And so he first, oh, by the way, after the arsons, before he shot anybody, he stabbed some women. And that's true. He absolutely did that. And one of the funny things he did say, though, because psychopaths are non-empathetic, right? He said, I didn't understand this woman's problem when she started screaming. I wasn't going to rob her or touch her or rape her. I just wanted to kill her. It's one of my most, like, really? Oh, okay. So you're only going to kill me. Sure, go ahead. I mean, this guy was like very not an empathetic human being. But when he started killing, he said he went home and he felt great. He had a sense of fulfillment and went to sleep feeling good. Now he was calm. After he figured out how to do it well, he started becoming calm. And then he decided to play this game with the police. And he, by the way, read Jack the Ripper. He was a Jack the Ripper. He was interested in how Jack the Ripper did things. I find his writings very similar to Jack the Ripper's. So I'm going to say, yes, Hunting Humans by Elliot Layton. Claire, thank you. That put it up properly there. Hey, Hunting Humans by Elliot Layton. Great guy. Great. This is one of the few books I'm going to have a whole segment on books I recommend for people who are interested in profiling and psychopathy. And I don't recommend a lot of books, but I recommend his because it's brilliant. Just brilliant. So he read, I believe, these are very similar to Jack the Ripper. So now if you're just psychotic, you don't have to copy somebody else's writings, do you? If you're psychotic, you just write the crap that comes out of your own head because that's what you think. I think he planned these because they were Jack the Ripperish, and he wanted to. He was one of the few serial killers who wanted to. He wanted to be famous. He's almost like a mass murderer, and it's kind of interesting because when they caught him, he did have a rifle with him, and he said he wanted to commit a mass murder and go out in a blaze of glory. So he's a kind of unusual one. He was almost like he was doing serial homicides, but most serial killers never want to be caught and they don't want to go out in any damn blaze of glory. But I think he just wanted the attention so badly. And that's why he's one of the rare people who went to the media and made the media pay attention to him, which is, why he wrote the letters. So I don't see that as psychotic. I see that as psychopathic. I don't believe for a minute he was psychotic. I think he planned everything out very, very well for the maximum effect that it was going to have on the population, scare them shitless and be the creepiest guy out there. That's what he did. So anyway, how did he get caught? Well, apparently when he shot the last couple, there was a woman who saw him pass by, and he was acting strange, had his hand like he was had like a weapon, and she saw him go away, and then she went in her house. He scared her, and then apparently that's when the couple was shot. And she told the police that down the street at that time they were putting tickets on cars, and so they ended up looking at the tickets that were put out there, and David Berkowitz was one of them. So that's how they caught him. And at the same time, he was harassing the next door neighbor, the Carrs, Sam Carr, where supposedly he got the name Son of Sam. Sam Carr lived there. He had a daughter, and then he had these sons, and he hated the dog, and he had sent Mr. Carr a vicious, creepy letter, and he's also sent some people. He used to live in their house, and he hated their dog too, and he sent them vicious letters. So the daughter actually was connected with the police, so she actually gave this information over to them, and then everything came together. Oh my God, it's this David Berkowitz. Yeah, he's this creepy dude, lives next door, shot our dog. He just got the ticket. He was there on that street when the people were killed. So they went and got him, and sure enough, he had the 44 Bulldog revolver. Was a revolver? Yeah, 44 Bulldog revolver on him when they caught him. So, and then he said, "Yeah, you got me. I'm Son of Sam." So he went down really quickly as far as when they finally caught him, he confessed, and they put him away. And that was that. At least we think that's what that was. So then what happened here? So now we get into the next part of the series. Now we have a theory that cropped up, and I'll show you why. Let me just want to see here. Okay, Maury Terry. Maury Terry. And I'm going to see what year he started this. I'm just trying to figure out when he started doing this. So, yeah, I don't see exactly when he started into his thing about, oh, he didn't do this alone. But I'll tell you what started him off. Yes, he did do that, by the way. I also think, hey, Anne Christine, I also think he acted in the courtroom when he had an outburst and called the victim a whore. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy, that was the last woman that was killed. And the family just, they hated him for this. I mean, they were so angry. You know, but he still got that moment of power, didn't he? You know, it's like, haha, see, now I pissed you off, even though, you know, you've already got me. I can still hurt you. I can still hurt you. So, oh, thank you. Claire's put up the actual, click on that and get that book. It's a pretty old book now. I'm trying to find out when. See, my book is like so ancient now. I don't know if I bought it that way, but it was published in 1986. So now it's 40 years old. Yeah, great book. And he does discuss a lot of psychology with the lives people, and he's not fooled. He's not fooled. But so what happened? Why the question is, why did Maury Terry, why did he start going off on this, this idea that David Berkowitz did not act alone? What was it that sent this guy, Maury Terry, on a lifelong hunt for what he called the truth, to find out who worked with David Berkowitz? Now, here is what happened. Okay, here's some pictures. Now, I want to explain to you about this. So there were witness accounts. Witnesses said this is what he looked like. And you can see from this guy over here to all the way over here. Look at these. There's a lot of different hairstyles. There's just different looks. And especially this one here. This one here looks a whole hell of a lot like the next door neighbor's son, one of the Carrs, John Carr. It looks so much like him. It's hard to believe. But here's the thing. Okay. First of all, when were these people shot? Oh, yeah. In the middle of the night, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. It was dark outside. Now, down the street comes, David Berkowitz, walking down the street. And people aren't necessarily paying any attention to him. But here he comes. And all of a sudden, let's say anybody even sees him. Okay. Because first of all, usually you don't shoot people when people are watching you. So usually you're going to try. Now, he stalked a lot. He stalked a lot. It wasn't like he went out and said, okay, I've got 20 minutes. I got to get somebody tonight. No. He stalked sometimes for weeks, looking for that perfect opportunity. He had nothing else to do at night. He didn't have a good dating life. So he's out there in his car. He's looking, he's trying to figure out where's a good opportunity. And when he finds a good opportunity, then he approaches the vehicle and shoots into it. Now, most of the time you're going to do that when nobody can see you, right? So the question a lot of times is, are these artist depictions that the witnesses described, even David Berkowitz, at all? I mean, did it have anything to do with the crime at all? Because maybe a lot of times they didn't actually see him. Now, let me tell you what happens. We had the problem again with the DC snipers. What would happen with the DC snipers is this. Now, we had a problem with vehicles being said, oh my God, I saw this vehicle. The guy was in this vehicle. So you hear bang, 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 right? And then you see a white van tear out of the gas station. So people are saying, I saw a white van tear out of the gas station. Well, do you know why the white van tore out of the gas station? Oh, you hear gunshots. Are you going to sit there, or are you going to put your foot on the gas and get the hell out of the gas station? So they saw a lot of white vans during the DC sniper time. And that's because if you go to gas stations, you're going to have people going to work, and there's a lot of white vans. I mean, so it wasn't a white van. It never was a white van, but people thought they saw something tear away. Now, same thing on a street. You hear bang, bang, bang. What's your reaction going to be? Oh, wonder what's happening down there. No, hell no. You're going to get out of there. What do people do when they want to get out of someplace? They run. So now you run by somebody and tear by somebody, and they go, oh, that guy came from the direction of the shooting. It must be him. So a lot of witness descriptions aren't actually very valid, and that's a problem. A lot of times they either didn't see the person well, or they're not even identifying the right person. And so it's just, you can't trust it entirely. You can say, hey, if you know somebody who happens to own a 44 Bulldog, I mean, it was 44, right? 44. Yeah, 44. If you know somebody who owns a 44 caliber Bulldog revolver and looks like one of these guys and runs around in the middle of the night, please let us know. That's reasonable. But you also have to let people know you're not exactly sure that the actual depiction is correct. So now we have this guy here that looks a shitload like the guy next door. He does. Because I'll show you. Let's see if I have the other picture of the guy. So take a look at him. I was going to put them side by side, but I had photo issues with my computer. So anyway, we got this guy. See how his eyes are really close together, and he's got his hair across the head. Okay, so one of the so when we look at this guy, oh crap, it's a bad picture of him. Oh, it's a bad picture. Okay, shoot, I don't have a good picture of him. Sorry, but it's this guy here, but he's kind of young there. But anyway, he does look a whole lot like him. He really does look like him. So, you can't say that he doesn't look like him. He does. But the point being that just because somebody looks like somebody doesn't mean that's the person. There's a lot of people who look like a lot of people. I was going to pull up one of my favorites. There's a if you look it up, you can put it's on YouTube. There's a news show where the news anchor says, and we're looking for this guy. And then they put a picture up behind him, and I swear to God, drop dead lookalike picture of him. Looks just like him. I mean, you couldn't even get a better match. You go, holy crap, it's you. So, it's a little questionable. But what happened was Maury Terry decided, oh my God, these people are all different people. I don't believe, therefore, that was one person who committed these crimes. And besides, this guy here looks freaking like the guy who lives next door to him, John Carr. And the Carr brothers, mind you, did have some not so healthy history themselves. And they both ended up dead. One ended up dead in North Dakota, Minot, North Dakota. That was this guy here, John Carr, ended up dead in Minot, North Dakota. And his brother ended up in a car accident. Just crashed his vehicle and died. Supposedly run off the road. That's the theory anyway. So now what happens is Maury Terry puts this together as, well, since all this satanic stuff is happening, I think these two boys were in it with him, and maybe they were other people as well, right? And then he starts searching down the satanic route. And he goes to a nearby in Yonkers, where these guys live, or close enough to. There's a place called Untermeyer Park. And it's kind of funny because it's got these kind of Gothic, I don't know what you want to call them. I'm not big on architecture styles, but anyway, it look Roman, Grecian, or whatever, this kind of style throughout the park. And it is kind of sometimes a little on the creepy side in different areas because it's just it can be eerie there for some reason. It just has this kind of stark look, and then it's got these things coming out of the landscape, and so it is a bit that way. And so what he decided was, well, here's a funny picture, by the way. Does anybody know who this is? This is somebody in Untermeyer Park. Do you know who that is? Who could that be? Why, it's me. Oddly enough, when I was watching the movie and they said Untermeyer Park, I'm like, why do I think I know this place? I started showing all the pictures of it, and I'm like, this is creepy. I feel like I've been there. Why do I feel like I've been there? And then I look back and remember that, yes, I had actually been in that park. I have lots of pictures of me in that park. So, and what happened was, this is actually not from the 1970s. Thank God I wasn't there at that time. I was there 5 years ago. I did a television show on serial killers, and I was staying in Yonkers within walking distance of the park. So I took a nice walk and I saw the park, and I went in the park, and it was lovely. But I could see kind of where it's a little, could be a little creepy at night, especially. So what happened is, apparently he talked to enough teenagers, and this is what they decided. This place. See the kind of creepy stuff here. You got old walls that aren't they're falling apart. Things left over, stuff that's broken down. And what they're saying is that there were places in this park that there were like these kind of places you could go into it, and then they had I forgot what they would even call these things, a pump house, or just some kind of structures that really would entice a teenager to go down into, to smoke weed or whatever they're going to do. And there's lots of these have paintings and all kinds of graffiti all over them, and some of them have. Yeah, that's not even the most creepy one, Claire. There's actually Claire says it looks creepy. Well, it does. And if I had the other pictures that I was supposed to have, they'd be here too, because there were some really creepy pictures. But this is a place where at night, if you can get into the grounds, and I guess you could, it was open, and it overlooked the water too. So you could do these ceremony things under these Grecian type of things. It's just great light in that picture. Great light in that pic. You look lit from within, Pat. Oh, thank you. I think that's called Face App, because I kind of fudged it a little bit. I didn't look that good in that picture, but I wanted to show it to you. So I cheated. So in other words, this was a place that teenagers could come and hang out in a few different creepy buildings there, and to go onto this platform. Because remember the other one I just showed you, this one, there are some claims that this one here, it's like it's a circular, and then you can stand inside and you could chant and stuff like that and have a nice, creepy, satanic ceremony. You could. And that some kids might have done that. Maybe so. What's interesting about this, and this is where we start running into issues with what Maury Terry says. He points out that right nearby, there's all this creepy satanic stuff going on, and da-da-da-da-da. He doesn't actually place David Berkowitz there. It's not like David Berkowitz wrote about this place. It's not like David Berkowitz had any pictures of this place. As a matter of fact, David Berkowitz kept pretty good diaries, and he never mentioned this stuff. So maybe he went there once as a teenager, smoked some weed. It doesn't mean he was involved in a satanic cult here. There's not any actual proof of that. And that's one of the difficulties. So, and there's another interesting part in this whole show where when John Carr, I think it's John Carr, let me just check my notes over here. This guy, come up. Why are we doing this? Okay. No, I'm going to talk about this there's a guy named Roy Radin, which is another whole thing I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But John Wheatcar, that's the guy that was supposedly, he spends a lot of time on this guy named John Wheatcar, who was one of the sons of Sam, who lived next door. And so what happened? Hold on one second, folks. For some reason, my thing just says my battery is running low, and that's because I forgot to plug the stupid thing in. Well, duh. Okay, is that working now? Do we like me? Okay. What? Okay. Okay, whatever. No. Okay. Wait a now. Now I'm getting those stupid messages. Do we want to restart now? No, not in the middle of my program. So anyway, let me tell you about John Wheat Carr. So John Wheat Carr, and apparently what happened was in one of the Son of Sam letters, David Berkowitz referred to wheat in their Wheaties, and they're like, oh, see, it matches this guy, John Wheat Carr. Now let me tell you how psychopaths work. They're not real original. So just like you steal from Jack the Ripper, you can steal names from next door. Just because you say, I'm the son of Sam, he wasn't the son of Sam, the guy that lived next door, Sam Carr. He just claimed, he just said that, oh yeah, he's controlling me with a dog. And then the sons live there, so why not steal crap off of them too? So, so there's, psychopaths just, they lie and they make up crap. So anyway, so what happened with this Sam Carr guy? So who was John Carr? That's the son. Okay, so John Carr, he is the son of Sam Carr. He lived near, so Terry, who also did the actual writer of the book, and this journalist, he actually lived near Berkowitz. They decided to look up John and found out that they actually had a homeroom with him in school. Okay, I was in school, for many years. I had homerooms with lots of people. I have no idea who the hell those people are. Just because you're there doesn't mean a whole lot. But so that's what he says. And then it says, it says that the father, Sam Carr, was abusive to John and his brother Michael as they grew up. And then, let's see. Just trying to see where he's trying to say that they have. So then this is where he goes. Terry decides to probe into the case even further. So he found a local teen who guided him on a path stretching less than a mile behind the Carr and Berkowitz residence on the old Croton Aqueduct. His findings were horrible. Along the trail, there were dead dogs and an old building with blood everywhere. The hiding spot was called the Devil's Cave. It was reported to be the meeting place of a cult called the Children. And this is where he goes off on the children tangent, thinking that the children are... he connects it to a whole bunch of big, huge organizations, including Charles Manson, and a big Scientology, who is a breakoff of Scientology into another organization. I think I have the pictures of who those people were. So where is that one here? Now I told you I lost all my pictures and just had. I don't know why, because I've never had a problem with this thing before, but now I do. So anyway, they're getting connected to all these bigger, creepy kind of Satan organizations. So, any rate, right after Berkowitz's arrest, now mind you, up until now, he's never said Berkowitz and Carr have a relationship. Now you would think if they were hanging out, they were buddies and friends, somebody'd know about this, but we don't have explanations that they were buddies together. Usually when serial killers work as a team, they are buddies. Sometimes they're uncle and nephew. Sometimes they're they can be husband and wife or just buddies, but they're usually close, and there's one that controls the other. And we don't hear this big thing about Berkowitz hanging out with the Carrs. As a matter of fact, doesn't seem to like the damn Carrs. So, he's shooting their damn dog. So, I don't see where his connection to the Carr comes in. So anyway, John Carr goes missing after Berkowitz is arrested. In 1978, so Berkowitz is arrested in 77. In 78, John Carr goes missing. And a deputy officer heard about someone trespassing at a housing unit on the Minot Air Force Base. When he looked in the situation, he heard a gunshot fire off and found John dead. Well, he was at his girlfriend's house. So this was a suicide. Now people are claiming it's a murder, but I'm not sure. It wasn't the police were arriving when he was shot, so it wasn't the girlfriend. So who the heck was in there when the police came, and suddenly snuck out somehow? It makes no sense. He killed himself. Now, there were claims following John's death. Listen to this. Investigators, whoever they are, learned that there were people, whoever they are, who had discovered him scribbling the Son of Sam symbol on telephone books. Ooh. First of all, they're the people. I don't know who they are. who knows if they're telling the truth? Once you have a case that's as huge as the Son of Sam, that huge as the Son of Sam. It's in every newspaper. It's become a part of legend. And if you knew him, you might brag about knowing him, even if you didn't actually know him. You might say, oh, he shot my dog. You might say, which was true. You might put the symbols. You might think that's really weird and interesting and put the symbols in a book because you're already screwed up enough. They were already screwed up and, they weren't healthy human beings. So, and then we don't even know if it's true. So we have somebody saying something that he scribbled a symbol, and someone, those people, said he was a local cult leader. Really? Who are those people? In North Dakota, a mental health counselor saw John. He was having mental problems. He went to a mental health counselor. Unlike a psychopath who doesn't want to, somebody with mental health problems will go to a counselor to get help. And they saw John reported strange confessions. John believed that someone was trying to kill him and that he might be in trouble with the law back in New York. Well, what is that? He didn't say Son of Sam. He didn't say any particular organization was after him. He just was a paranoid. He might have been psychotic. This guy might have been schizophrenic. He had a rough childhood too. Maybe he was psychotic, the real psychotic in this whole situation. So, so I don't see that proves a damn thing, that he had anything to do with it. Then he said he also talked about having a connection with Berkowitz and participating in witchcraft. He could say that. That's what somebody said he said. But again, we don't even know who said what. It's not very well documented, nor did anybody take a polygraph test on this crap. Suspiciously, John's brother Michael died soon after in a car accident where it appeared someone ran him off the road. He was also going like some unreasonable one, like 95 miles an hour. So maybe somebody he almost hit somebody and then he ran off the road. Over the years, police would come to believe that John's death was probably a homicide. What police? Who? So there's a lot of stuff that's said by Maury Terry that doesn't have a great deal of actual evidence. And it's very funny because and I think it was one of them, he went on. Now, Maury Terry, now mind you, how did Maury Terry get so popular in all of this? Maury Terry, what he did was, since he was obsessed with it, and he was a journalist, so people, because he was a journalist, were willing to believe to some extent that he had something, maybe some kind of validity. And he wrote this book, and somebody published it. And then he started going on television shows. He was on Geraldo and a whole bunch of other shows. And of course, TV talk shows love to have somebody come on and say, he didn't do it alone. Yeah, I've got a great theory about satanic. And the satanic panic was coming out in that whole time, because there was some creepy stuff going on with people getting into Satanism and stuff. So this huge satanic panic, and everybody in the country, there's this huge, organization that is all connected, and they were involved in the Son of Sam things. And the question would be why? And his answer was that they wanted to create a massive disturbance and panic and destroy the threads of society where everything felt very frightening. And so, okay, I can see that if you wanted to destroy society, just going and willy-nilly killing people here and there is kind of messes things up, right? So, okay, possibly, but where's the proof and how does this actually work? So the guy's theory, first of all, is that he somehow worked with the cars, which he never proved, in my opinion, any connection to in any way, shape, or form. And then, and then there was this interview where supposedly they have this girl on there in the show, and she says, I met David Berkowitz was out here in Minot, and they said, well, was John Carr in the room? And she said, yes. Well, first of all, I don't know who that girl is. I don't know if she ever really saw David Berkowitz. She just wanted to say she did. And then one of Maury Terry's biggest problems is that when he does his interviews, he leads, and that's unfortunate because he leads the interviewee into saying, agreeing with him. Wasn't he in the room? Yes, he was. You never do that. You just say, tell your story, because you don't want to give people information that they can then say, okay, that's true. So So this girl supposedly, I'm like, okay, I've been looking up, I've been Googling the crap out of, was there any proof that Berkowitz was ever in North Dakota? And I can't come up with anything. So I'm like, where's the proof that he was there or that he hung with these people? I mean, where's the proof? And I don't see it. So anyway, so here we are. So now this is the small part. It gets worse. It gets worse. So anyway, he thinks the cars helped him, but everybody's being controlled by somebody. And it's not just about Satanism. It gets worse. So how does it get worse? Okay, now we're going to go to this guy. Here's when craziness really descends. Who is Roy Radin is the question here. Now, what happened was in prison, let's see, there was an informant. All right. Some informant from prison. Okay, you know, there's a lot of informants in prison who are full of crap, but they enjoy. There's a lot of them are psychopaths. They enjoy playing people and manipulating them, so they like to say stuff. And they have a lot of time in prison, and a lot of times they have access to stuff like books and things that they can read about, and they learn about stuff, and then they go, well, "What can I do? How can I make this benefit me?" So anyway, check this out. The informant, Vinny, name of our horse, by the way. Vinny the horse is much nicer. The informant Vinny went on to allege that 20-year-old Stacy Moskowitz, who was the son of Sam's 6th murder victim, that's the last one, was murdered on purpose and not as a random killing. He added that Moskowitz was shot as part of a snuff film, a pornographic movie in which an actual murder occurs. According to Vinny, this snuff film murder was allegedly filmed by a man named Ron Sisman, who was tied to a satanic cult. Later, Sisman was murdered in a shooting that went unsolved. Okay, now let's look at this as a snuff film. You know, it's nighttime, you got a car. You shoot somebody in a car. Let me tell you, it makes a really shit. Supposedly, Sisman, this is the claim, Sisman was parked behind Moskowitz's car, where this car Moskowitz was in with her boyfriend. He was parked behind it in the dark. I think it was dark. I should just double check that. But first of all, you're behind it, okay? And you know, he's using some crappy camera because we're talking 1970s here. We're not talking about great shit. So we're talking 1970s. So I don't know what camera he's got, but anyway, in the dark, this guy comes up and shoots into a car. You're not going to be able to get a good video of somebody's brains blowing out. You know, if you want to do that, you bring them into a room. This is what snuff film is supposed to be. A snuff film is where you can see the person die, where you can see them be shot and their brains come out and their eyes roll, you know, whatever horrible thing, or you chop them up or you stab them. You want to, they people who like that kind of crap like to see it happening in detail. That's where the big thrill is. It's not a big thrill. You're like, what the hell is that shit? I can't even see it. No, this is a stupid way to make a snuff film. It's so retarded that I'm like, oh, come on, that is not the way you make a snuff film. So this is nonsense. So then it gets worse. So then he adds one more piece of crucial information. That Sisman, this is the guy who supposedly made the film, who got murdered, was involved with another shady character known only as RR. RR lived in a mansion on Long Island and was not shy about his obsession for snuff films and held a significant role, maybe as a cult leader, maybe as the cult's leader. Which cult are we talking about now? Okay, the same satanic cult Berkowitz was tied to. Berkowitz was never tied to a satanic cult, ever, never. So there's no proof Berkowitz was tied to anything. So now this guy's supposedly tied to something. So what they did was they finally connected they were able to connect the mysterious RR. This is Terry and a guy named Zuckerman with Roy Radin. Radin lived in a Southampton mansion where he was known for throwing rowdy parties where drugs and illicit sex acts were aplenty. He was kind of one of those guys. Any rate, so there was a woman, an actress, who made an accusation. She was brutally raped and beaten there, and when she refused to join in an orgy, and Radin was charged with criminal possession of cocaine and LSD and a possession of a handgun, and he pled guilty. So anyway, She also said that the assault was videotaped, but I don't know that they ever had the videotape. But anyway, they said that. So it was never definitely proven that Radin was connected or served. Okay, there was nothing to connect him. But anyway, apparently he goes to California to make this movie deal, and he gets murdered out there. Everybody keeps getting murdered, but Radin gets murdered. Radin, I don't know how you pronounce his name. Radin gets murdered out in California, and it was a murder for hire because apparently it was something to do with a big movie, and he wanted in on it, and there was drugs involved, and it's very complicated. But nothing ever connected Sisman, the guy who supposedly was making this snuff movie behind the last victim's car. Nothing connected Sisman to Berkowitz, to doing any of these things, to this guy named Radin, who never was. None of this has any true evidence, in spite of the fact Maury Terry would like to say it has all this evidence. So now, just to take a look at how this ends up being almost just insanity. Think about when you go back to the beginning, he was arrested. David Berkowitz was arrested, and he was found with the actual gun that was matched to the crimes. Now, if you have a big group involved in all these crimes, why does nobody else have another gun? I mean, does he go, hey, it's time to go shoot somebody. Here, borrow my gun. Here, take my gun. I mean, really, was he just handing the gun around? I mean, people are saying there were more people, there were more cars. Well, where's the more guns then? Doesn't anybody else have a gun? I mean, they all use David Berkowitz's gun, and he doesn't. Oh, he's like, he's going to take the blame for everything because he was like told that by the people that were controlling him. I mean, I mean, really? Okay, so, oh, that's, yeah, exactly. I can't imagine, Lisa, I can't imagine somebody filming a snuff film in the dark on a potato. That one's funny. Anyway, let me put up this one picture of the later picture of David Berkowitz. I think it was David Berkowitz, isn't it? Okay. If it's not David Berkowitz, I'm really sorry. Yeah, he gave two interviews to Maury Terry, and these were fascinating interviews. Maury Terry goes in there believing 100% that what his theories are correct, even though he's got no evidence to support that. This. I mean, sharing a gun wouldn't happen. Well, the only way, Claire, I think that could happen is if he was just buddy with this John guy, right? And they were like, okay, you go shoot this time. You go shoot him this time. That'll confuse people. And I'll go shoot him next time. I mean, that could happen. There's just no evidence of it. And I'll show you one of the reasons this makes no sense later on, along with the fact it's just stupid in general. But anyway, so our buddy here. So Maury Terry goes in and interviews him 2 different times. And Maury Terry, as I pointed out before, the problem with him is he leads. He tells him what he do. Is this what happened? Were you working with other people? Yes. Okay. Were you involved in a cult? Yes. So the interviews are really interesting because he just leads him into everything. He gets him to, quote, admit that he was connected to a cult, that he didn't commit most of the murders himself, that he was around but he didn't commit them. He just told Terry whatever he felt like Terry wanted to hear. It was complete garbage and completely unsupported by anything. And one of the things that Terry did was he doesn't bother to actually get detailed information. Now, he did not kill that many people. And a guy who's so much into it, he's going to remember some of these things, right? How it all went down. Now, I'll tell you why the police believed 100% that this was the guy and he committed the crimes himself. I'm going to read you a couple of these from my friend Elliot Layton's book because it's so interesting the way he says it. Okay, so he confessed to all of these murders. And one of the neat things about when I'm reading this is that when you look at his actual, let's see, where is his, I'm going to try to find here the actual, what he said happened. Okay, this is how he describes things. Okay, where is it? Okay. I have to find it. Hold on a second. It moved somewhere. This is just one of these days where I keep losing everything. But it is in here. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to find it. because I'm just going to read. I just want to read a couple of them because it's when he confessed to these things. It's you just oh, okay. Hold on one second. All right. Oh, okay. He would say things like, I familiarized myself with the streets and possible escape routes from those central areas. Also, I managed to learn the streets by repeated trips into the area. I mean, there were nights in which I traveled all through a certain area, but it turned unproductive. Toward the end of my spree, I developed a keen perception of police tactics. Sounds not very psychotic to me. I knew exactly what he was doing. After a while, I was able to spot an unmarked car regardless of its disguise. And then he said, I want to find the one. I'm still looking for it. God, why is everything disappearing on me? Because he described, so he describes, okay, here's the last crime, for example. His last crime was in Gravesound Bay, a middle-class section of Brooklyn. Starry Moskowitz, a 20-year-old telex machine operator, and Robert Violente, a 20-year-old clothing salesman, met in a restaurant. Berkowitz had begun to stalk one couple in a Corvette, but the car drove off before he could reach it. Violente's Buick pulled into the newly vacated space. They kissed and embraced, said Berkowitz. I had an erection. I had my gun out, aimed at the middle of Stacy's head and fired. One bullet struck her head, another nicked her. I didn't even know she was shot because she didn't say anything, nor did she moan. Then I got in my car and drove off. And he will describe each one of these crimes. And here's another one. Here, I want to read this one too, because this is so Berkowitz recalled. Okay, so this one was November 26th, 1976, found him cruising again. He drove aimlessly through the killing ground until just before midnight, when he saw Donna DeMacy, 16, and Joanne Lamino, 18, returning to their homes after an evening at the movies. Donna noticed a figure standing behind a lamppost and said, Joanne, there's a guy watching us. He's kind of scary. Let's walk faster. And as they did, he followed them. Berkowitz recalled, by the time I was able to get back and hide behind a lamppost, they started to walk. I followed. They saw me and walked faster. By the time I crossed the street and got to them, they'd gotten to one of the girls' houses. They knew I was behind them, and they tried to get in the door. As the girl fumbled nervously for her house key, I started across the grass to them. Everything was going right. They were right in front of me. I didn't want to get them frightened, so I began to ask them for directions. All the while, I was getting closer. They turned back to the door for an instant, but it stayed locked. Then they turned their heads to me. I had the gun out and pointed it in their direction. I shot twice. They were both hit and they fell on either side of the stoop. It was just like it should be. You shot them and they fell. It was simple as that. He describes all of his crimes just like that. And I don't, in those particular descriptions, I don't see any deception. He's describing them because he's enjoying describing them, how they happened. So this is why the police believed him. The guy had a history of setting fires, shooting the neighbor's dog. They knew he wrote the letters. They had the gun that killed everybody. It was in his possession. He confessed to the crimes, and he confessed in absolute 100% proper detail of what happened. And never once did he say, I was there with my buddy. And when he had these interviews on television with Terry, with Maury Terry, he just said what made Maury Terry happy and got him to be on television. And but he gave no details. He gave nothing that made there was nothing he said that you could prove. Absolutely not one thing, because it was all so vague. And it was just basically letting Maury Terry finally have the confession from him that he wanted, that he had help. That's it. And so in the end of this whole thing, what we have is a guy, and I want to point this out because it is a kind of a really kind of a scary thing to see how things end up this way. That this guy he started sinking his teeth into something, and it's hard to tell whether it was his own ego that wanted to prove it to be true, that he believed it so much he wanted, quote, justice. I mean, I've worked on cases where I know there has been an injustice. I know the person convicted didn't do it. I know the person I was looking at did do it. And I would like to prove that. But I try to prove it with actual evidence, and I'm also not going to go down a rabbit hole where I'm starting to add 1,000 pieces of evidence that have nothing to do with anything, that have no true connections, where I'm just starting to fantasize about things because I want to fantasize about them. And so what happens with people who do this is they often make things, they start small. My baby had a helper, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger till now this huge national organization of Satanists is made him do it. I mean, well, there's absolutely no evidence of that at all. There's another case, I'm going to talk about it on another show, called the Smiley Face Killers. And in this particular instance, I was a bit at fault for starting this whole stupid idea, because I was looking into a case in Minnesota of a man who was murdered, and his body was found in the water. Like, well, he was eventually proved he was murdered. Originally, they said suicide, but it wasn't. He was murdered. And I was looking into a guy the police had asked me to look into who liked to drown young men. And that was his thing. He wanted to be a serial killer. He wanted to be Jeffrey Dahmer, and he wanted to drown young men. And I went online pretending to be a young man, underage young man, and he started talking to me. And he lived a block from where this man went off the bridge, or supposedly went off the bridge. He didn't actually go off the bridge there, but he lived about a couple blocks from the club the man left. And then he was found in the water below that bridge. Complicated case, so I'll do that when I have time to do that. And so what happened was, when I was looking into this one guy, a magazine got a hold of me and said, well, do you think this guy did this? And I said, well, I have no idea if that guy did it or not. And I said, he's a wannabe serial killer. And so because somebody found a smiley face near where this man's body was or something like that, these two ex-cops out of New York, these two detectives, decided that it was a gang called the Smiley Face Killers, and they went around drowning college-age men. And it was the most ludicrous concept, because these men weren't robbed, they weren't raped, they weren't even hurt, they weren't beaten, they were just drowned. So somehow this bunch of people across Wisconsin, Minnesota, God knows how many other states by the time they finished, were drowning all these college-age men, because somewhere on a tree was a smiley face. Well, people like to make smiley faces. It's the simplest thing you can put on a tree. So it's the most nonsensical thing ever. But they started getting television time on the Smiley Face Killers. And you can look that up now, and it is all over the internet, the Smiley Face Killers. And it's ridiculous. And what happens is, because certain media outlets like controversy, they like creepy stories, they will give the time of day to people who are going down rabbit holes, because they think it's interesting. It's interesting. And, people are going to watch the show if they come on the show and say this stuff. So this is what I think happened with Maury Terry. He went down a rabbit hole. That for whatever reasons he went down it, he never came up with anything that was any shred of evidence linking anybody to this crime except David Berkowitz. But he did get his book sold, and he did get now a Netflix series made about him. But so I say the series itself talks about the rabbit hole he went down, but unfortunately, I would have liked to go back to the original crime and show why David Berkowitz was the guy that did it, and that none of his stuff, don't leave it out hanging out, maybe somebody else really was involved, that kind of nonsense, because that just keeps this garbage going, and keeps people, I'm going to guarantee now that show came out, there's going to be a bunch of people who will say, well, he didn't prove it. And there's going to be a whole bunch more stuff, especially on the internet. There's going to be people now trying to prove who those people were. And they're going to do show after show after show on YouTube. And they're going to have hundreds of thousands of people following them going, oh my God, yes, let's find out who these Satanists are. And let's see who the Carr family was involved, blah, blah, blah. And they're just going to go into the rabbit hole too. And it makes somebody a whole lot of money. And so that's one of the sad things. Well, that's funny. What a scary sounding name for a gang. What kind of, some smiley face killer gang. Yeah. I mean, because these smiley faces were found on trees, and you have to look that one up. It's just so dumb. I mean, it's just plain dumb. So yeah, this is correct, Lisa. You can only follow the proven facts. yeah, you should only follow the proven facts. But the problem is a lot of people just claim, and this is what was interesting when Maury Terry was on this show with, I think it was with an FBI profiler. And he said, well, you said, and the FBI profiler goes, you know, and it's in the show, so you'll see it in there. When the FBI profiler goes, well, you know, this is ridiculous. He did it alone. He's, you know, he's a psychopath. And I know serial killers. And the guy, I know serial killers better than you. And Terry says, well, look, evidence. Look at the evidence. Okay, I've looked at the evidence, Mr. Terry, and I don't see anything that was actual evidence. I see conjecture. I see I see fantasy. I see crazy stories, trying to connect things that don't connect, you know, and he had, and it's interesting. He has a whole chart, and he's got, you know, the box with the name in it, and then that connects to this box with the name in it, and so over. And I'm like, he's connected a whole bunch of stuff to Son of Sam in the middle, when actually none of this stuff even existed. And that's one of the unfortunate thing. I want to point this point about theories again, Claire. Prove it using evidence, not theories. Correct. Now, I have theories on things. One does have to have theories. When one is analyzing crimes, one does come up with theories, but the theories should be based on the evidence. And the theory should lead to more evidence that then leads to conviction to prove what happened. I mean, you have to have some theory. For example, there was a theory when they started realizing that there was a connection between these crimes. The theory was, there's a scary guy out here with a 44 Bulldog revolver who's killing people sitting in cars. And that's, you know, that turned out to be pretty factual. But then the question was, what's the theory behind it? What is he doing it? Why is he doing it? When is he going to strike again? Who is it? Is it one person? Is it two? You know, so you're going to have theories base them on evidence as much as possible. And when you have a theory that, well, it's really hard to say. It's like, I'm trying to think of an example where I've had a theory. There are theories you come up with that then you have to prove. So what you say in those cases, let me see how I'm gonna try to figure out how to actually say this. I'm trying to think of a good example. I had a theory in one of the cases where I had a theory that a woman was killed because of a drug issue with her brother. And the reason I came up with the theory was because the brother had ripped off a bunch of cocaine from the mob. He had ripped this stuff off from the mob. It truly happened. And the daughter went to the father and said, can you give it, can we get some money to pay these people off so they don't kill us, kill my brother? And the father said no. And then she went to a restaurant bar. And then when she left the restaurant bar, she went down the street to where her car was. People heard voices at the car. A shot rang out. And she was killed. And then somebody heard nearby a car start up in a parking space that belonged to that family. And then one person was heard saying to another, something to the effect of, "Oh shit, I can't believe that just happened." And then when one of the young men said, one of the sons of this, one of the brothers said, "Dad's going to shit when he finds out what happened." Not that his daughter was dead, but what happened. And so, okay, so I'm just trying to paraphrasing this. I'm just trying to put this. Okay. At that point, I did not have evidence. Okay. The only evidence we had was that the woman was dead. And there was a claim by the neighbor that they heard voices saying certain things at the car, and the car drove out. There are certain things that there is evidence of, but there's many more things to prove. So you have to go back and look for more evidence. In that particular case, it was very interesting that eventually a guy was convicted of that crime who had nothing to do with the drug issue. and he was convicted on the most flimsy evidence I've ever heard in my life. I think that was a miscarriage of justice. I still believe what happened was, my theory was correct. The problem was I could not get the police to do enough work, this particular police department to do enough work to actually, they refused to actually even interview anybody in the family about the drug trade, even though they were in the drug trade. They refused to interview them. I don't know why, but they refused to do it. And so eventually a guy who was kind of a total loser was convicted with pretty much zero proof. So you can have a theory that you don't have the evidence to necessarily support every aspect of it. But that's why it's called a theory. It's, otherwise you'd know what happened. You say, this is what happened. Like, it's not a theory that 6 women were shot. But you could say it's a theory that 6 women were shot by David Berkowitz, because Maury Terry thinks 6 women were not shot by David Berkowitz. His theory is that they weren't. Majority of people's theory is that they were. And that's because the evidence supported this eventually, that he had the gun. He said in the confession, and he knew what happened, and so on and so forth. So eventually there was enough evidence to say, when you get to court, it's not just a theory. It's very likely, without reasonable doubt, that he actually committed this crime. So it's it gets a little bit like that. So wait a minute, what's this? Judging a book by its cover. Berkowitz doesn't have that lost look, like he's broken from reality, and he's looking directly in the eye of whomever he's talking to. Psychotics don't do that. Yeah, and I want to point out, a psychopath can be psychotic too. I've seen that issue, where in other words, you are a psychopath, but you become psychotic. That can happen. But David Berkowitz seems like he, unless he wanted to be portrayed that way at a certain point in time, he seemed to be very much in control of things. And certainly during the crimes, he planned every one of them. He knew what he was doing. And so there's no actual, there was no way to think this guy was just doing crazy stuff because he didn't know what he was doing, and he was just a nutcase. Yeah, well, that could be so. It sounds like Terry arrived at his theory using causal inference. Yeah, and he just, let's put it this way, logic was not part of it, because he did not logically connect these things. The inferences, he wanted to believe certain things were true. So because he wanted to believe that, he went and got the sketchiest information. A teen showing you a site where some other teens may have hung out and done some creepy things does not prove that Berkowitz was involved in the cult. I mean, I was in that park too. I was there too. Does that mean I'm involved in the cult because I too was in Untermeyer Park? I mean, that's how bad it is. It's like Pat Brown must be a Satanist too, because she also went to the park. I mean, that's the kind of silly stuff that is very unfortunate. But that people, the thing is, because he believes it so much in his own mind or for whatever reasons, he has people believing him. He has some of the victims of Son of Sam believing him. Some people actually think Stacy's mother believes that it wasn't David Berkowitz. Now she believes somebody else did it. And, the only reason I can think that people do that is because the pain never goes away. And so when you catch the guy, and he's just this stupid creep, Berkowitz, such a stupid creep. The stupid creep goes to prison, but your pain doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. So somehow you keep thinking, well, you keep going wanting to prove more things because maybe that will get rid of the pain. It won't, but that's why people, they just go on and on and on sometimes. And even when the guy's already in prison, they want to prove some other crazier theory or more people. I guess you just want, it's sad. It's really sad. And that's why when I see people like Maury Terry doing this, I mean, I can't say that Maury Terry didn't believe what he believed. He gave his whole life to this thing. His marriage failed because he didn't pay any attention to his wife because he was so involved and just running down every lead. He was on the phone constantly. He basically destroyed his life over this. Now, Maybe he also had a personality disorder. It's possible. Maybe he suffered from a narcissistic personality disorder or a borderline personality disorder where he kept having to prove himself. In other words, just like Berkowitz wanted to be somebody, maybe Maury Terry wanted to be somebody too. And by doing this, by constantly trying to prove this, he would become somebody. And of course, I think sadly for him, he never was totally, truly believed outside of a small circle. And now he's not around to see that a movie was made about him. So kind of sad that, that you would go down a path to that extent that would really, that would to destroy your life to that point. And I point out to people when people look at, when they look at these different shows, especially these profiling shows where the profiler is always getting into the mind of the killer and losing their own mind. Like, you should never, ever let that kind of thing take over your life. If you're going to allow that, then you should get out of the field. In other words, you shouldn't be there. It's not healthy for you. So, I mean, there's cases which I would still like to prove that there was an injustice and the wrong guy's in prison and the right guy's out on the street. And there's a couple of cases which I put my, credibility on the line, and I'm not too happy that it didn't work out so well for me, because I still believe I'm right. But on the other hand, there's only so much I can do, because there is a system, and sometimes the system doesn't work the way we would like it to, and sometimes nobody will listen. Interesting enough, I've had cases where I have actual evidence, like the evidence. And I can't get the media to have me on their shows. I can't get the media to print it in their papers because they like the story they've already got, and they don't want to change that story. So they don't care how much evidence you come up with. So the media a lot of times has agendas, and they don't care about the truth whatsoever. And it's very frustrating when you're sitting there and going, look at the paperwork right here. It's from the police department. It's from the medical examiner's office. I have the autopsy report. And you can't get anybody to pay attention. They hear you, but they don't want to acknowledge you, and that's very frustrating when you're a profiler and you know better, and you can't get anywhere with it. But that is, yes, this is correct. You need to practice clinical detachment, and that is true, because you do your job. You do your job as well as you can do your job. You can't save the world. You can't always win. And sometimes it sucks. It does suck. But that's why you have the clinical detection of where you do your work, but you also have to have a life that's a healthy life on this, that's over here, that actually it should be in the middle. And then you have your work life. And when you come home and you've got your loved ones and you've got your other hobbies and things that you do, because you also should have a good life while you live on earth. And the people around you shouldn't be screwed over because you have an obsession with something that you can't win at, or that you couldn't prove, or whatever the issue was. It's easier to paint people as monsters. Well, as far as Berkowitz goes, I mean, he called himself a monster, and in a way, he did monstrous things, but he was just a guy shooting a gun. Pitiful piece of crap shooting a gun. That's the way it works. Oh, here's the point. Yeah, like the McCanns, Lisa says. The McCanns being one of the most interesting cases that ever crossed the face of the earth. And if anybody here doesn't know, just put in Madeleine McCann, and you'll learn 500,000 things about the case. Not all correct, but a very fascinating case. And I've been involved in writing about it for a long time. I've been to Portugal, meeting with Gonzalo Amaral. I've been very involved in this case, but I never lost myself in the case. I didn't go down a rabbit hole on it. And one of the things I've been very careful to do with cases like this is stick with facts again. There's a tremendous amount of very, very interesting theories, which are, again, inferences. They are created stuff that doesn't have true solid connections to anything. And so people are trying to connect these dots again and saying, well, this could have happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. But the evidence doesn't truly support that. It's a lot of imagination. And I'm not saying there couldn't be a piece of truth here and there in those things. There can be, but we just don't have evidence of that. And I prefer to stick with as solid evidence as I can go, because otherwise it's bad for everybody. It's bad for the case itself. It's bad for the families. It's bad for society in general when we go off such a deep end that we promote stuff that doesn't have validity. And what we're happening now with Netflix and other such oxygen channels doing it too, just a bunch of crap they're putting out. And most of it's based on, let's just come up with something cool. We don't care if it's true or not. Let's come up with another theory on whatever crime it's going to be. And by doing that, what we're going to have then is, what we're going to do then is we get a show, and everybody's interested in the show. And then that breeds other shows. And then it just goes on and on. But that there was any truth to any of it. And I point that out when I talk about my book, The Murder of Cleopatra, because I actually had never studied Cleopatra. I knew she was the Egyptian queen who died supposedly by a snake bite from a cobra, and that's all I really knew because we didn't study it when I was in school. And I had Discovery Channel call me and ask if it was a production company for them, but we want to do the show on Cleopatra, about the snake. Was there really a snake? And what was interesting was when they called me, it wasn't like they really had any idea of anything. They just wanted a new show on Cleopatra, and they wanted to stir up some trouble. And I told them, look, I'm not going to do something, just make up stuff. I'm not. And then I said, give me time to investigate to see if there's any possibilities here, or because I know you're just throwing stuff at the wall. Next week you'll come up with a new crazy, maybe this could have happened. And it turned out, as it was, I investigated, did my research on that and did my analysis, and there was, in my opinion, there was no cobra, and that was a lie. And I ended up doing the show and eliminated the cobra from the history of Cleopatra. And then I wrote a book called The Murder of Cleopatra, which talked about all the other myths in her life, which are not true. And it's really fascinating. She was murdered. She did not commit suicide. And I have, I think, a solid amount of evidence to support my theory on that. But TV is gotten to the point where they just care about ratings, and the integrity and ethics have kind of just gone off a cliff. So I'll say for this Netflix series, at least they didn't say what he said was true. Then they didn't say Maury Terry was right. I just wish they'd done a little bit more about the actual evidence, and that would have been nice. They are available online. Lisa, yes, the PJ files are available online. They are. I've read all of those. That's how I wrote my book. Which is Profile of the Disappearance of Madeleine McCann, which you can get on Smashwords and Barnes & Noble and Kobo or whatever the other ones are, Apple. Not at Amazon, because Amazon pulled the book, and because of the McCanns threatened me with a lawsuit. Not me, they threatened Amazon with a libel lawsuit. And even though there's no libel in the book, but I used the PJ files. Those were the files from the police department, and so we have actual information there, which is great. And that that's one of the important things too. Oh, isn't that nice? Oh, Janice says you have my book, Cleopatra, just starting it. Well, let me know what you think. And thank you very much. At least you made our Sundays a lot more interesting. Thanks for your entertaining videos. I'm glad. I'm gonna sign off here, but I do want to point out, one of the reasons I'm doing these videos is because, I see things like this Netflix thing, and I think, is there anybody out there who's going to look at this logically and discuss the issues so that people can actually see what should be true and what's not true, and not just fall into it, fall into the rabbit hole with these people. Oh my God, maybe there was a satanic cult. No satanic cult. I mean, there's no evidence of it, so don't go down there. And then people will say, well, there could have been. Well, there's a lot of could haves in the world, and it's not worth it. It's like when people come to me and say, well, my loved one was murdered, or like say, murdered in such and such a place. And then they come up with the craziest ideas of how that person got murdered. And they want me to investigate all these ridiculous avenues. And I'm like, no, I can't waste all my time on these ridiculous avenues because it's not logical. I can only focus on the things that make sense, that have some evidence supporting them. So I think that's just really important. And I think we need more logic and less drama. There's enough drama in the stories to begin with. I don't think we have to then lie about everything or create stuff that's just a nonsensical, nonsensical. What do you want to call it? Gripping tales that entice people. But again, if you're out to make money and only money, that's what people do, and the media is definitely guilty of that. So, and I don't object to people making money. Please do subscribe to my channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and hit the bell so I get some information. And hopefully someday, YouTube will monetize me so I can keep doing these. So, I'm not objecting to people earning a living. I object to people not just going out for making money off of malarkey, essentially. So, isn't that nice? Thank you, Annie. I love Sundays with Pat. I'm glad to be here. It's really fun to do. So next week I will be back. And if you have more ideas about what you want me to talk about, I have a list now of what people are interested in me doing. And this one came up just because, why did this come? Oh, I think I just saw an advertisement that Netflix had put out, this Sons of Sam. And I just really? Okay. And because I haven't really I never did really deep studies on David Berkowitz. And I thought maybe I missed something. Maybe there was something there that, I didn't spend huge amount of hours, pursuing, because I, never did a show on it. And I never did a book on it. And, maybe there's something I don't know, and I'm open to a new theory if there's evidence to back it. I mean, because sometimes there is that. So, Apple Books. Oh, that's cool. Okay, yeah. Profile of disappearance. Yes, that's Apple Books has it. Okay, it's. I can't remember where these things are. I think when you put your book on Smashwords, it goes to a bunch of other people at the same time. They have partners or something. So I never know where to tell people to get things. But you can't get it at Amazon. That's for darn sure. And I'm working. Some of my books, unfortunately, are overpriced right now, and I'm frustrated. It's like Cleopatra is, I think, priced too high. And what happens is I don't control the price. It comes from the publishers. And oddly, what happens is the older your book is, the higher the price goes a lot of times, because I don't know why. I mean, to me, they should reduce the price. Hey, the book's been around for 10 years. It's not selling as well as it did when it came out. So why not just drop the price in half, and let people buy it? I'd be happy if all my books were $2.99, especially Kindle. I'd like them to be $2.99, maybe $4.99 at the max. I'd like that. And if I can sell the book myself on Kindle, if I put the book up, like Only the Truth, my fiction story, is $2.99. And sometimes I just gave it away for free the other day because I control it, because I published it myself. And same thing is true for Profile of Disappearance of Madeleine McCann is also controlled by me. I have a couple things up there. I put up one fun one, which some people understand and some people don't. And it's 10, I'm trying to remember the name of my own book, 10 missing and murdered children's cases that have nothing to do with Madeleine McCann. And anybody who knows I've done work on Madeleine McCann knows what this means. But some people who don't understand that read the book and thought, what the heck is this crap? Because every single case I talk about ends up talking about Madeleine McCann. And I talk about them too, but I'm talking about the issues that the media has become a media thing with Madeleine McCann, so that when another child goes missing, they don't get as much information, much attention as Madeleine McCann, or they don't get as much money for their case as Madeleine McCann. So each chapter, as I talk about the missing and murdered child, then I talk about how Madeleine McCann. So the joke is partially, see, you can't get away from Madeleine McCann. Every other case is just not as big in the media, and it doesn't get as much money, and it doesn't get the attention. So that was the book was about. So I put it up for 99 cents, because, I have to put it up for something. Can't do it for zero. So I put it up for 99 cents because it was a short, fun look at, and a very true look at, mind you, it's not just fun. It's a true look at how the situation is, but it's gotten mixed reviews, like 5-star from people who understand what the book's about, and 1 star, 0 stars from people who are like, well, that Pat Brown's an idiot. I don't know what she's talking about. She's really just talking about Madeleine McCann. It's kind of funny, but I don't control, unfortunately, My other books, I do not control. For example, How to Save Your Daughter's Life. I'd like people to be able to get that book in written form. The only form it's in right now, it's not even in Kindle. I don't understand what's going on there. I'm going to try to contact the publishers, but they only have it in audio. And that is the one book I didn't do the audio for myself. And there's some woman speaking who I can't stand her voice, and it doesn't match me at all. I'm like, so. Oh, isn't that nice? Okay. I thought I unsubbed you after your awful analysis of George Floyd. Well, you can go ahead and unsub me again. You know how that works. That does work. And I can do everybody a favor. Oh, darn. She got blocked. Oh my goodness. Opinions differ. So oh, that's so nice. Only the Truth is an excellent book. Thank you very much. I love that one just because I don't know. It's just I feel like I know the people. Wait a minute. McCann's. Wait a minute. Where is that? Lisa says McCann's is not what you know, it's who you know. Mm-hmm. There's a bit of that there. I love that you delved into the history for a book on Cleopatra. Thank you. I didn't intend to do this, but I got that call from the Discovery Channel people, and when I found out how screwed up the history was, I could not believe how bad it was. I mean, it was like, who's believing this nonsense? I mean, so I went back to Egypt and I studied the Nile inundations, and I studied the architecture, and I studied every aspect of how the building of the naval ships to the armies and their movements and all the politics. And basically what is written about Cleopatra is a complete mythology, and it's supported by absolutely none of the evidence. And the actual evidence proves that these things didn't happen. And yet the same story is told over and over and over and over again, and it drives me crazy. So I wrote this book, and I got a few places that gave me some credit for it, but an awful lot of people were angry from the historical community that a non-historian wrote this book. So there we go. Bye, Claire. Bye. So, Lisa, I disagreed with you about George Floyd, but I wouldn't unsubscribe because of a disagreement. I'm not that rigid, and I'm open to other views. I like that, Lisa. That's awesome. And that will happen. And the George Floyd case, let's face it, the Chauvin case is a very, very emotional and political case, and it's very hard. I really didn't actually even want to talk about it, but then people asked me to, so I did. And I stayed with what I believed was sticking strictly with the legal issues and the medical issues and the police technique and all that what happened. And that's where I came to the conclusion it was second-degree manslaughter and not murder. But I understand people may disagree with that. And, yeah, we can't always agree with everybody. I mean, there's profilers out there that, if they put out a profile, I may disagree with their profile and they may disagree with mine. And the idea is to present as much evidence as we can so that I can at least show you why I came up with my determinations. And when I send in a profile to the police department, I do the same thing. I list all the evidence that supports my theory, and I allow them to then to analyze my analysis. They analyze my analysis. Did she provide enough evidence to support her theory, or didn't she? Or if I go with her theory, why am I going with her theory? Oh, it's because these pieces of evidence support that. So then they can make their own decisions on which way to go with an investigation, what they should investigate, what's more important to investigate. So that's the idea behind, doing a crime scene analysis. That's important. And it isn't always that everybody's going to, particularly think that my particular analysis is the way, is they're in agreement with. Who wants to live in an echo chamber? Part of what makes America great is a variety of voices and points of view. If we can't, it's very sad, because if we can't, be able to discuss things without getting insanely angry because we don't agree, it's a sad thing. And So yeah, I can't do much about that. Luckily I've been around here long enough where, when I first started out doing this kind of work, and went on television, it was very disheartening because you get attacked a lot, and called all kinds of names and really, really rude stuff. And after a while, you're just like, oh, whatever. You get so used to it. You do become immune to it, thank God. Once you know who you are, I know who I am. I know why I do what I do. I know why I've made my determinations the way I made my determinations. And I don't have to be 100% right all the time because I'm a human being. And sometimes I might slip up, maybe I just looked at something wrong. And, I'm like, somebody comes up and says, I disagree with your analysis because of A, B, and C. And I go, oh, wow. Shoot, okay, I'm going to agree with you, this time. I'm going to say you're right. Your argument was better than my argument. I mean, there used to be something, remember in high school, we used to have a thing called a debate club. The concept of debate club wasn't to trash each other and it wasn't to hate each other. It was to be able to take information and facts and evidence and whatever, and then be able to dissect that and then express what you think and have it be something able, to be intelligent and people can talk about things. So what do you think of them? I don't. What country are we in for the Sophie Long thing? What country are we at? Tell me where Sophie Long is, because I've never heard of Sophie Long. You have to develop a thick skin. Yeah, you do. I mean, it's very hard for people in the beginning. Oh, that's nice. I like them. Yes, I love you. Okay, too. Yeah, I mean, it's. Anytime you go into politics or you go on television, you write a book. I mean, the hardest part I have is still with Only the Truth, because the characters are like my babies and they're not, it's not just my opinion of something. They're my babies and you don't like my character. You don't like my baby, So you almost like your children and you don't, it's not like it's an attack on you, it's an attack on your children. So it's a fiction writer's issue. So I actually got more bent out of shape about that. I feel hurt. Feel hurt for them. But when somebody comes and attacks me, I don't feel so hurt. I'm just like, I'm just not everybody's cup of tea. So where was Sophie Long? So who's going to tell me where Sophie Long is? Oh, this one. Oh, what? Wait a minute. Sophie was a little girl in Texas in a viral video, was screaming and refusing to go with her mother because she said her mom's boyfriend and his friends were abusing her, and the dad filmed it. I do not know that one. I'll have to look into it. Let me say something about the issue of children. This is such a very, very difficult thing. We have a problem with this. People say children don't lie. Actually, sometimes they do. And sometimes they do what they've been trained to do, or what they've been taught to believe, or what they've been even told has happened, which hasn't happened. So the tricky part is, especially when you have Munchausen syndrome or proxy, and that is a mother who either kills her children or makes her children sick for attention, but she also, what also can happen is she will tell her child, your father did this to you. Your father did this to you. Your father touched you in a wrong way. Don't you remember when your father did this and that? And they can really warp a child into having memories that don't quite exist. So the problem comes down for the social worker or whoever is in the midst of it. So the child says, Daddy did this, for example, or Mommy did this. Now the question is, who do you believe? Do you believe that is the child telling the truth about exactly what happened? And does she even know what she's saying? And then are there puppeteers behind her, the mother or the father being puppeteers, especially in divorce cases, custody cases? You get a lot of this stuff. And some of it's very cruel. And a lot of parents have lost their child over claims that weren't true, never been able to live them down. There's other people who maybe even got their child based on false claims and ran off with them. And, and then that child has grown up believing something that's not true. It's really, really tough, very tough. And I don't know. I Stand with Sophie campaign. Oh, I will look into that. I say it gets really, really creepy sometimes. She called the child a brat and thought the child was lying and said the dad was horrible for filming. The dad created a GoFundMe. Police said no evidence of abuse. Lord God Almighty. That father is a manipulative. I don't know. I say, I don't, one thing I don't like to do is get involved in just hearing hearsay from people. So-and-so said this happened. The police said, I don't know. And so I don't want to accuse the father. I don't want to accuse the mother. I say these are very tricky situations. There are some situations where I have been able to analyze, and I have been asked to analyze, and I've been able to come up with a conclusion. Some of them are very hard to determine where it comes down to. The best way to figure this out, by the way, so for those of you who are still here and we're just having a nice Sunday conversation, which has nothing to do with David Berkowitz now, but and I will do a show on Munchausen syndrome by proxy. But one of the most important things is history. So what is the history of the mother? What is the history of the father? People do not act out of character. They do not. So you will have a history going way back of attention seeking, of manipulation, of lying. These three things come with this kind of somebody who's manipulating or saying something that's not true about their child, or having their child say something. It's a psychopathy, and it's a version of psychopathy. And so what happens is you have to look at their history. And sometimes it's very interesting, because what you'll find when you look at their history is they do have a long history of crazy complaints, claims that things happened that were never proven to have happened. Just a whole bunch of stuff that in anyone's normal life it is not going to happen. You have fallings out with other people, one person after the other person after the other person after the other person, and you wonder why that person lost all their friends. And it's probably because they did that to each one of them. So you have to look at history, because that doesn't change. So if I were analyzing this case, I would want to find out the mother's history, and I want to find out the father's history to see whether somebody's playing a sick game. And that's what you have to find out. But please don't talk about this any further, please, because I don't know. And I don't want to talk about cases here that I don't know anything about, because then we become a channel of, because I can't comment on it, we just become a channel of gossip, and that I don't want to do. But yes, I'd be happy to do that. A show on Munchausen, yes, it's far more prevalent than most believed. This is very true. It is more prevalent than people believe, and there's different levels of it. So there's some which are mildly manipulative, and and there's ones that are really scary. And what's sad is that for the Munchausen's kids is that, since doctors rarely recognize it, and because there's no history, because remember the old days when we knew each other, when a doctor was like the family doctor, he knew you and he knew your whole family. But now you go into Kaiser Permanente and you get a different, your doctor left. Now there's a new doctor there. And that doctor has no clue who you are or your child. So that mother comes in and she might say something like, my child is having problems. My child has, constantly, she's always sniffling on her nose, and she's always got these allergy problems. And she's not bad today, but every day she says she's got a stuffy nose. That might not be true. She might be making that crap up because she wants some attention. So then the doctor gives her some medicine, some allergy medicine. Then she goes home and tells everybody her child has allergies and gives the child this medicine when the child doesn't have allergies. And so these are the kind of things that happen. There's claims that can be made. Somebody hit my child when nobody hit your child. My child came home from school and said we talked about it, and it turned out her teacher did this to her when her teacher didn't do that to her. And just manipulate. So that poor child is just caught in a spider web of a parent who is getting all their attention by using this child as a way to get attention. There's another interesting way I just want to mention. Sometimes we see is that the mother will claim that the child has make them have behavioral problems. In other words, the mother wants to say how she's suffering by having to deal with this child. This child does this child does that. I have to deal, and everybody feels sorry for her because she's got this difficult child. Oh, Oh, do I have to? No. Profiling at the movies, Gone Girl. God, do I hate that story. I hated the book. I hated the movie. And the only reason I didn't walk out of the movie is because I was stuck against a wall and I couldn't get past the 10 people that were to my left. Oh my God. But yes, that story is about a manipulative female in that particular story. Well, that's true and not true. I want to point this out. Yeah, this is true. Docs are more reluctant than ever to note their suspicions, as now every patient can order their charts from their doc. And again, they don't recognize it. And what happens is, yeah, your medical history is in your chart in theory, but it's first of all, the doctor's only in the room for 7 minutes if he's going to give you that much time. And so the child comes in, the mother says something, they give the child something, they put it in the chart and they go away. But there isn't necessarily an understanding of that child. So, where you would know that child for a long time and you'd know if their mother was a whack job or whether the child had any issues. You just don't know these kind of things. The doctors don't see you long enough to know any of that. And sharp objects. No, I have not read that because Gone Girl, I did not read Sharp Objects because Gone Girl pissed me off already. And I can do a thing on Gone Girl, but Gone Girl was completely, there was something about it. I can't even remember what it was, but as a profiler, it didn't work for me. I do not know that one at all. But, say the medical system is not set up very well for understanding any of this. And then the training on Munchausen syndrome is very limited, and very few people know anything about Munchausen syndrome. And Jill Dando, oh my God. Do I look like Jill Dando? I mean, when I was younger, because people said I look like Jill Dando. And yeah, I'm aware of that one. And I know that I knew about it when it happened. And maybe it's because people kept saying I look like Jill Dando in some of my photos. I don't know. But I can't remember it very well. I can't remember what happened and why it happened. But that's a really good one. I would like to do something on Jill Dando. Thank you for bringing that one up. I'm going to put that in my, right now, I'm going to put that in my, I have my list here where I just keep adding anybody's great ideas. Because, it's funny. There's so, it's scary to think there's that many murders in the world, but there are that many murders in the world. And so, especially because there's so many countries. And then for one country, there's certain murders that are just so interesting that we in another country just haven't had in our media. So we are just, quite frankly, quite unaware of those things. So, that's interesting. They recorded about me and my son's records because I have pushed to have an official diagnosis before the age they diagnose. Ooh, I wasn't having my son wait another 2 years to get help at school. It's so tough because, so you have an issue and you say there's an issue, and then people say you're making up the issue, and then then the person makes up an issue and they say it doesn't have an issue, and so it's extremely difficult because they it's kind of like a divorce court. When the judge tries to figure out who the hell should get custody of the kids, he's going with a bunch of, he's got two people who are fighting each other. He doesn't know their whole history. Then they go see some court-appointed person who may be a complete idiot for, a therapist or whatever. And they come up with their conclusions and they don't know you either. So, I mean, and it gets so convoluted that sometimes the only thing the judge can do is try to make the safest choice he can make. And a lot of it's interesting how that works out sometimes because, but that's what they do because they just don't know. They absolutely do not know. And I mean, I recognize certain things. Like I've had people call me up and they'll tell me things like what's happening in their lives, I'm being stalked or this is happening. And I do recognize narcissistic personality disorders and deception and fabrication and stuff like that. So sometimes I can be on the phone for 5 minutes and I'm like, okay, you're lying. You're lying. And no, we're not going to do this. Bye. And I've had mothers call me up to try to go after the fathers. I've had fathers call me up to try to go after the mothers. As a profile, they want me to profile the other person. And it's really a mess. And it's damned unfortunate. It's unfortunate because the kids have what? Oh no, seriously. Oh, Lisa says Ronald Cummings, the father of Haley Cummings, should be getting released from prison soon. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. He said he will search for Haley when he is released. Didn't he say she got eaten by a crocodile? He's going to search for. Oh my God. Okay, that is another case I will do a show on because, yeah, it was not a stranger. It was not a stranger kidnapping, abduction, homicide, or whatever. Yeah. Definitely Ronald Cummings and his lovely girlfriend definitely had their roles to play, in my opinion. And I'm going to put that one down. I forgot to put that on my list too. Oh yes, Haley Cummings. Good Lord. I did a lot of work. I did a lot of commentary on that case. And one of the tricky parts now is that, it's so frustrating because, when the case first came out, I did so much work on understanding it and reading about it and looking at all the evidence, and I spoke about it so much. And now so much time has passed. I'm like, I know what my basic concept is, but I can't remember all the details. And so I have to research everything again because it's just, I don't remember why I thought what I thought, which sucks, Who's this? The Jeremy Bambi merch. Oh, really? Oh, that's in the 80s. Well, did he do them? Ronald Cummings wasn't convicted of homicide. He was convicted of drug dealing, I believe, drugs. This is when the Bambi murders. So he's come. Why is he getting out? Can you tell me why he's getting out? Was he convicted of the murders? I'm going to put that down too. Was he convicted? Because wow. So yeah. So so some of these, I say these are, I vaguely remember hearing about that one, but I again don't remember entirely about that. So there's so many cases. When I first started this, I'm like, I wonder if I have enough stuff to do on YouTube. And now I'm like, oh my God, I've got there's so many, and there's new ones that crop up. And of course, when new things come up that are, current, I'm gonna like this was a current thing because of Netflix, and I wanted to address it. But there's so many cases which have just gone unsolved for years, or we don't understand why people do what they've done. Like Natalie Holloway, for example, her body's still never been found. And that case has gone on and on for a long time because her body was never found. And just the fact the family would like to know what happened to her. I have my opinion on what happened to her, and I'm going to do a show on Natalie Holloway and Jeroen van der Sloot. So I will be doing that. Oh, he's doing a life sentence. That's what you want. I want life sentence to actually mean life and not life minus 20 years so you can get out early. So there's so many cases that have so many fascinating issues about them, but I will be approaching all of them with an evidence issue. I'm going to focus on evidence, and also people ask. Here's something people don't understand. They think that criminal profiles basically just profile serial killers, and that's not true. And secondly, they think that what we do is just say. Get into their motives and their childhood and all this stuff, who they are. And that's not true either. The majority of what I've ever done as criminal profile is crime scene analysis. And I do understand how psychopaths work because that's who commits these kind of crimes. So you have to understand psychopathy, and you have to understand evidence analysis and using logic in these things. So it isn't a lot of times, like, every time you see a show on TV about profiling, it's like, so what's in the mind of that serial killer? I don't really care. I don't care what David Berkowitz thought. I know what he is. David Berkowitz is a psychopath. And David Berkowitz wanted power and control like all serial killers. He just found an unusual way to get his power and control as opposed to a sexual homicide. And maybe it's just because he didn't really want to touch the women. He just didn't like to do the up close thing. When he tried to do the stabbing thing, he was grossed out by that. I was like, ugh! And then they screamed and shit, and I didn't like it. So he didn't like doing that. So he preferred to shoot at a distance where he didn't actually touch the victim. And that gave him the thrill and power and control, as did the DC snipers. That's their thing. And a lot of mass murderers like to shoot people because it's at a distance. So they get their thrill in a different way than sexual sexual predators do, but that doesn't mean they're not all psychopaths. And quite frankly, I don't care what they think. You know what I mean? It's just there's creepy people. Oh, I was a Ronald Cummings supporter until I found out he wanted to get back with Misty when she got out of prison. Why would he want to do that after her lies? And that's what I'm going to talk about in the show. And I say I have to go back and look at all my notes, but it's not just about Misty. That's the whole thing. You know, it's about Ronald. And I will get into that, but I have to, I don't want to say anything here without thinking, because I say a lot of the details are blurry in my head right now. But Ronald Cummings was involved, and in my opinion, and so therefore, but yeah, when I get into that, you'll see when I do that show. So, oh yeah, this is true. And the DC snipers enjoyed the fear they caused. Absolutely, that was a big, huge thrill. And you know, there's something in the DC snipers which I brought out, and nobody listened to me. And I wish, by the way, I wish I had seen the letter that one of the DC snipers wrote, because he's from. When I heard the letter, I'm like, oh yeah, he's writing like a Jamaican. And that's because I was married to a Jamaican for 25 years. I know what the sound of their Jamaican English is like, patois. I know how it comes out in writing because I've read so many letters. And one of the things I always believed was, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this. I'll probably do a thing on the DC snipers someday, but there's a movie, a famous cult movie, not this kind of satanic cult, but you know, a cult movie called The Harder They Come. Got great music in it. Great famous song, The Harder They Come. And it was a movie about a man who was on the run from the police, and he became a folk hero. And I've always thought, somewhere in the back of the mind of the younger DC sniper guy was The Harder They Come, you know, because, you know, people, they even in film, we see things in film, and so do psychopaths, see things in film, and that's their fantasy. And if they can live that fantasy, I mean, in The Harder They Come, he did become a folk hero, even though police were trying to, you know, arrest him, and he ends up getting killed. But he was a folk hero, and so you know, the DC snipers are folk. Well, they're not exactly heroes, but you know, they're famous, aren't they? They became somebody. Both of them became somebody. And they had both the thrill of the moment they did it, and then they had the thrill of all the stuff they got after that. Do you think, Glenda says, do you think the American news media is biased or ethical? Neither, both biased and unethical. As a matter of fact, Glenda, I stopped doing media. I used to be on, I've done 3,000 media appearances in my lifetime from 2000, I think somewhere around 2000, up until about 2015, 2016, 17, somewhere in there. And I quit. I walked away because I couldn't stand doing it, because it was so biased. It was so, the problem was the agendas and setting people up to be punching bags for, you know, whatever, you know, those little boxes they put people in. You end up in one of them, and then what they do is they do a pre-interview to find out, oh, okay, she's going to say this. We'll get 3 people who say the other thing, and then they stick you there, and then they have the 3 people attack you. And that's just, you know, you're coming on as an expert. You know, this is not supposed to be, you know, some Jerry Springer show. You know what I mean? You know, who's your daddy type of thing. This is supposed to be, I'm an expert. I used to be brought on in the early days as an expert. I always got respect. That's why I did the shows. I got on there and I was able to talk about crime. I was able to talk about profiling and get respect, and just be treated well. Now again, not everybody agreed with me, and not every other expert agreed with me. But the difference was we were being brought on in a respectful manner. And then what happened is everything went agenda, and everything went awry. And this, I'm not even talking about politics here, mind you. I'm not talking about political stuff. I'm talking about, we just want to do a show on this particular person, and we want you to say whatever we want you to say. And if you don't say that, then we either don't let you on the show, or we make fun of you while you're on the show. And this is true for documentaries as well. I won't do documentaries anymore because I've been stabbed in the back on documentaries. I've been libeled on documentaries. And one of the last ones I did, like, they just cut me out completely because I didn't say what they wanted me to say. And I got a free trip out of it and some money for that one, but they just cut me out. And so it's not like it used to be. Something has changed dramatically, and it's really sad, because we should have news that tells the news. And if we're going to have, I personally don't think the host should give their damn opinions about anything. If you're doing the news, just do the damn news. And then if you want to have a show specifically to discuss news, that's a different matter. Then you have a discussion show. But I don't like the concept that the hosts are giving their opinions on the show and they're acting like they're experts on all these things, which they're not experts on. It's just turned into a mess. I don't even watch the news anymore. I refuse to. It's depressing. And, and I'll tell you this, because you got so many UK people here. I'll tell you, where I get the best news today, which I cannot believe is true. The best American news. Does anybody want to guess? I'm going to put this up here as a guess. Does anybody? Oh, Oxygen sucks. Oh my God. I heard Oxygen was biased for true crime documentaries. I got screwed on the last Oxygen thing I did on the Martha Moxley case. They cut all my stuff, and then they made me look stupid, and then took away my evidence that I presented. I will never do anything for them again. Unless I have some ironclad contract on that. But anybody think, where would I get the best news for America right at the moment? Which you're not going to, I think some of you are not going to believe this. Right now, the place I go to get the most accurate, most detailed news for the United States, where do you think, what media outlet do you think I get that from? Does anybody have a guess? You're not going to believe it. Al Jazeera. No, but actually these days they might be better. But no, not. Yep, Claire, you nailed it. That is actually true. The Daily Fail. Not kidding you. Now, I think I was libeled by them. But anyway, in the past. But I mean, we've all called it the Daily Fail for years. Am I correct? And it's like, oh, this is, tabloid crap. Right now, if I want to learn anything about the U.S., something that's happened, I go to the Daily Mail, and they have I don't know where they get their information, because they're way ahead of the United States on the information. They got more information than I see in any other outlet. And they get it first, and they get it in detail. The article is hugely long and actually has true information and facts in it. Can you believe that? Isn't it? I mean, I agree with you. That's it. Really? The Daily Fail. Oh my God, it's hysterical. I couldn't believe it either. I started realizing one day that was the only place I could get decent information from about my own country. No clue why that. Yeah. I mean, Lisa's like, Daily Mail. Yes, oddly. Can't I? Go figure. Yeah. So I'm not saying they're always good, mind you, but I'm just saying, isn't that how bad things have gotten, that I actually get better information from the Daily Mail than the New York Times, the Washington Post, or any of the stuff we have going on here? I know they're a rag. Yeah, they're a rag, Claire. That's what Claire's saying. They're a rag. Yes, but the rag has more information now than all the U.S. media outlets. Go figure. I mean, I literally find out the information from them. Hard to say. That's where we are today. So yeah, the Daily Fail. But go figure. I'm very, very cautious with the media now. One reason I'm having a better time right now with doing YouTube, because everything I say is here. It's not edited. Nobody's telling me what to say. No one can stop me from saying it. And I can, I don't trust doing anything hardly ever anymore. I say it has to be something. I have to really, really have, after my last experience with Oxygen, that was so bad that I would never, ever do another documentary unless I have written in it. First of all, I better be the host of the damn documentary, like I was with Cleopatra. Because when you're the host, then at least they treat you well, because you are the show. But when they bring you in as an expert and have you fill you in places where they just want you to say certain things and then edit it so that you look like you're saying something else, because they have their agenda already set up, and they'll lie to you about the agenda too. They will lie like dogs. They'll call up and say, we really want to do a very fair and show both sides, about this particular case. And they're lying. They have one side, and that's the only side there is. And you're either brought in to support that side, or you're brought in to be made fun of and to be destroyed on that show by every hook and crook they can to destroy you to support their stuff. So yeah, that's the way the media works. And it's you know, I'm sorry, I bet that's an amazing smell. Yeah, somebody's smelling good stuff. Oh, yeah. So actually, whoever was smelling, oh, there we are. It's raining and the wisteria smells good. Oh, that's nice. It's raining here too. Doesn't it always rain there? Yeah. So that's why I say I'm here on, you know, I'm really getting to the point too. Got lots of wisteria. That's one of the reasons I'm here on YouTube, and I may stay here for a while. And if I publish any books in the future, I'm going to likely publish myself, because I don't trust the publishers either anymore, because they you know, I don't know, it's craziness. Oh, really? They fed line. I know someone that said auction actually fed lines to people they interview. Well, they'll do that, but they'll also, what they'll do is they will tell you to see what happens is depends what they want from you. So what they do with me is they ask me for all the, tell me, they just have me analyze the crime, and then they just edit it to not say what I said, or leave out the most important point. The whole thing that would give me the support for something, they would leave that out. And so then I sound like an idiot, because I'm like, well, she hardly brought up anything. Well, because they cut it all. But what they can do is tell you, I have been pushed to say certain things, and then I refuse to say them, which is why they cut me out of the whole documentary. But other people will go along with the program because they want to be in the documentary. Now, mind you, let me let you know something else interesting. Documentaries rarely pay anybody to be in them. So unless there's some big wig, they rarely get any pay. And I've had to tell them, look, you think I'm coming out there for free? You're crazy. You know, you're making money off this documentary and you expect me to volunteer? No. But the money's still not good. But they don't want to pay anybody if they can avoid paying anybody. So what they do is they get people who want to be on TV. You know, I'm going to be in a documentary. I'm very excited. So when you are excited to be in it, then you can be manipulated and pushed around. So we're going to talk about this now. So could you tell us about this way? And so they'll do stuff like that, and consequently people will fall for it, and they'll do it because they want to stay in the show and they want to get airtime, you know. And so yeah, it sucks. It's really sad. So we have to be very careful. I don't know what that is. What is that? Oh, thank you, Jen. I'm really glad you're doing this for us. Well, I'm glad to do it too. So it's, you know, I've been away from TV for a very long time because I had to walk away from it. So, you know, and I did miss that. But you know, what I like better now is that I get to actually see the people. I see you here at least, and I get to communicate with you, which is much better than TV, because it's, you know, when you're doing stuff with the host of TV, everything is so phony. You know what I mean? So we're here with Pat Brown. So Pat, what can you tell us in one very small segment, which is like 15 seconds? What can you tell us about this crime? Do you think it's a serial killer? Well, it could be a serial killer. Thank you very much, Pat. It was nice having you here today. Okay, now that is not true. Sometimes I got more time on certain shows, depending on what I was there for. But it's always, you know, a lot of times when you're actually on the show, the host isn't even looking at you. They read the notes and they don't even pay attention to what you're saying, because they don't care what you say. They're just trying to get through the notes on the show. Okay, Pat, tell us about that, such and such. And then you're talking and they're looking elsewhere. And then they go, and when they hear you stop talking, they just go to the next question. So it's not like you're connecting, you know. So it's really nice to have, oh yeah, you've had that problem too. You get live feedback. That's what I love about YouTube. I do too, Claire. I mean, it's nice to know that when I'm saying something, you're here to say something back, and you're here to ask questions. And it's just a real different thing than doing TV, which is, you know, the car comes and picks you up, and then takes you into the city, and you go in, you get your hair and makeup done. They put you in the chair, you mic you up, you get your mic and your earpiece, and then they say, we're on in 5, 4, 3, 2, and then they go, hi, we're here with Pat Brown, blah blah blah, and I say my bit, and then sometimes they'll say, okay, we'll keep you on for after the break. I might stay there and do another piece, and then, well, thank you very much, Pat, and then it's over. And then you get up, take off the thing, you get in the car and you go home. And, and then sometimes people comment to me on, Facebook and stuff, but not the same thing as, I don't know, having this. It's just kind of, this is really cool. And I didn't know much about it until Liz got me involved 6 weeks ago, and she said, you should do this. So I did. I like what you're saying. I haven't had the same experience with the press, aerodoses, far, far less frequently than you, Pat, of course, but I've had my statements truncated. Yeah, they do it. It's, I'll tell you one of the saddest things that I see sometimes. I remember I actually did this. I was following person doing a reporter once with a camera and everything. They went to this museum, and this woman was supposed to show the museum was, I don't know, so they had some special thing, and she was so excited. This woman, she really loved what she did, and she wanted to show what great things they had, and she was just, they taped for like 30 minutes, and she gave all these little discussions about all these things, and it was so neat. Do you know when I saw that show that evening, she had less than 10 seconds. She basically said, and we're having a show today, and that was it. And I felt so badly for her, because I thought, she must have been so upset, because, not only that, she was probably excited about being on TV and getting this opportunity, but she truly loved what she did with whatever the museum stuff was. And, when you have your heart in something and you want to express that and you want to share it with people, and then you're just being used, okay, we got to fill in this. We got to put in 3 stories. So we'll pick this story, and this story, and we'll shove them all in there as quick as we can get them. Oh, this is true too. The U.S. media's people scream about politics. Isn't informative at all. Their true crime is bad too. They always pick sides based on which party participates on the show. Well, it gets worse. They actually pick the party they want to participate. So they have the agendas behind them. And usually it has to do with whatever they think makes most money. Not the truth, whatever makes most money. And that's what they'll go with. Now, but you take something like Madeleine McCann, they won't do a show that it's not pro Madeleine was abducted. And they won't do that because of libel issues, and because they still believe that the majority of the population wants to hear that she was abducted and doesn't want to hear the other facts. So they run with that. And who do you think does not ever get called to do those shows? And even if they know I've been involved and have written a book and all this stuff, I never get called, because they don't want me to say what I have to say. And unless they get me on there, if you lie about why you're going on there, you could say, oh yeah, sure, I'm going to talk about that. And then you get on there and you tell them the truth, and they try to figure out how to get you off of there as quick as they can. I won't lie. If they do a pre-interview, I will tell them they ask me questions, I will tell them what I'm going to say. And then they just usually say, thank you very much, but we'll have you on another day, because they don't want me on. Or if they don't ask me and I get on there, I will say what I think, but then there's usually stunned silence and attacks coming, and it's just correct. It's all money driven, and it's very, very sad. So, Lisa, bye. It's 10:20 here in the UK. I've got to be up at 6 a.m. Oh, you poor dear. Yes, I don't like 6 o'clock in the morning, but I'm glad you came, Lisa. It was great having you here. What is it? I like this lady. She'll not let my bad jokes disrupt the show. Wait a minute. What bad jokes did I miss? Hey, I like bad jokes anyway. So, but I want to read a couple more here. I totally get why famous people will be openly hostile to certain journalists, or why they refuse all interviews. It's because they've been burned. Yes, indeed. And that's it. You've been burned one too many times, and you don't trust them anymore. And you shouldn't trust them. And as I say, if I do a documentary now, it's going to be ironclad. I won't just go on because they want me to be there, and then they can edit me. And it's like, if you edit me without my permission, I will want to see, literally, I want permission to view the product before it goes to the public, because I don't ever again want that to happen. So that's where I am now. But, a lot of people, what happens is it's part of their, this is how they earn a living, because we all have to earn living. So, here you are out there and you need to do the television and all this kind of stuff. And, there are some advantages to growing older because I don't give a shit anymore. I never really gave a shit to begin with, but I've always been like that. I'll just do whatever I can. I just do it. I just do what I think is the correct thing to do anyway. I've never been a money hog, so that's helped greatly. And now that I'm even older, I'm like, I don't need a day job doing this stuff. So I don't need. And if television comes and says they want to offer me a show, but I have to follow certain, I have to do it a certain way. And they can't pay me enough to do that. I don't need the money. I'm not rich or anything. I just not, I don't need the money badly enough to go out there every day on an agenda show and be unethical. I just no, not going to do it. So anyway, Arrow Doe is heading out. Bye bye. See you later. Oh, you're not leaving yet. It was just Lisa. Lisa's. Oh, don't you dare say that. No, don't you dare say that to Lizzie. Lizzie's been a great support, and I wouldn't be here but for Lizzie. That's just so cool. I really wouldn't. I never considered doing this, and Lizzie convinced me I should do it. And I thought she spent a long time convincing me, by the way. So I like hours trying to convince me. I'm like, I don't know. Why would I want to do YouTube? And then she really pushed me to do it. So that was really cool of her. And otherwise I wouldn't be here. So anyway, I'm going to let everybody go now because it is getting late. And I'm going to go do something else because it is Mother's Day. What should I do? Yeah, there's nothing open. It's so boring. but anyway, I wish this whole lockdown thing would end. It's driving me insane. But if I was busy, I wouldn't be here, right? So I wouldn't be doing YouTube because I'd be out doing other stuff and probably wouldn't be. I've even tried this. So I will give that. Lockdown has helped me start a YouTube channel. So it was worth something. And spend a lot of time with my granddaughter too, which I normally don't get to spend as much time, but I've been homeschooling her this year. I've been homeschooling her for a year now, and I've had a really strong relationship with my granddaughter now. So that's pretty cool. So there's some good things that came out of lockdown, but I kind of would like it to open back up again. So, but anyway, thank you for all being here. Oh, relax and order supper. Oh, you thought I was going to cook, Claire? Yeah, that wasn't happening. Oh, well, okay. I'll answer this before I go. Pat Brown. Okay. Oh, no, wait a minute. If I become a serial killer, I want you to profile me. My shtick will be killing people using what I find in school satchels. It'll be called a protractor of the guts. That would be interesting. But now if you do that, I will be able to hunt you down. They're like, I don't have any idea who committed this crime. I'm like, wait a minute. I think I know who did that. So I'll be able to catch you. Ooh, let's make a pact on this. You tell me how you're going to do it, and then I'll catch you, and then you'll become famous from prison, and I'll become famous in general. So hey, it works out well for me, doesn't it? But I just want to point this out before I go. I actually ask people, if you became a serial killer, I've done this in classes. If you became a serial killer, what kind of serial killer would you be? And people are always like, how could you ask me a horrible question like that? But it's very interesting because we actually have ways we would be, if we were going to commit horrible crimes and kill people off, there are actually ways that our own personalities would do it. And there are ways our own personalities would not do it. So it's kind of funny that, sadly enough, we even in something horrifying, we would have things that we would be drawn to doing and things that we wouldn't do. So basically, fun times. Yeah, we don't want to have those kind of fun times. So we want to be good people. And I wish we had. We need to stop what helps psychopathy develop in children, because children are psychopaths by the time they're just in their little toddler years. And most of them don't become violent psychopaths, but they damage our society tremendously. They damage families, they damage marriages, they damage their children, and they sometimes go out and damage the community as well. So it sucks. And so we really, and unfortunately, I think what's happened during lockdown, we're seeing a lot of psychopaths go berserko, because they're already losers, and now they're even less able to have any kind of a life because of the lockdown. So lockdowns, we're seeing a lot more murders. A murder rate in my area has doubled. So it's insanity. It's doubled in our area. It's everything from people shooting everybody else to children being killed to crazy crimes, and then the mass murder thing has increased as well. So we're having a real problem with psychopathy gone wild. So, but anyway, I'm going to see you all here next week, and it was a pleasure being here as usual. You all are great, and so hopefully I'll see you then. Don't know what I'm going to do yet for my next show, but we shall find out when we find out. So anyway, goodbye everybody, and see you later, and have a happy Mother's Day again if you're in the US.